Hi, everyone. I'm Ethan, a 29-year-old happily married man. My wife Maya and I met in college and have been together for 4 amazing years, 2 of which we've spent as husband and wife. Our relationship has been the foundation of my happiness. Maya is everything I could ever want in a partner: smart, kind, and fiercely independent. But if there's one shadow over our otherwise bright life, it's my mother, Caroline. Caroline raised me as a single mother after my father passed away when I was only 5. I've always admired her resilience. She worked tirelessly to ensure I had a good life, and for that, I'll always be grateful. But her determination to build her success came with a side of arrogance that has only grown over the years. She owns a thriving business, has a pristine social image, and thrives on control. For as long as I can remember, she's taken pride in being the center of attention. Unfortunately, this need for control and superiority turned into a significant issue when Maya entered my life. Maya grew up in a very different environment. She and her 3 sisters were raised by hardworking parents who struggled to make ends meet. Her father was a janitor, and her mother took on multiple jobs to provide for their family. Despite the financial challenges, Maya's parents instilled a deep sense of pride, integrity, and determination in their children. Maya worked her way through college with student loans, graduated with a degree in marketing, and now has a promising career in advertising. She's incredibly proud of her journey, as am I. Unfortunately, my mother, with her obsession for status, couldn't see past Maya's humble beginnings. The first time Maya met my mother was during a dinner at Caroline's house. I was excited for them to connect and had high hopes that my mom would see Maya the way I did. But the evening took a sour turn. Maya, being the genuine person she is, shared stories about her upbringing, including her father's work as a janitor. I could see Caroline's expression shift. She didn't say anything outright, but her smile faded, and a distinct coldness entered her tone. After the dinner, Caroline told me, "Ethan, I'm not sure Maya is the right fit for our family." I brushed it off as my mom being overprotective, but as time passed, it became clear that her disapproval ran much deeper. Subtle as it was, her disdain showed through in countless ways. She would buy Maya cheap, thoughtless gifts while giving lavish ones to her friends or employees. Once, she bought Maya a knockoff designer bag for her birthday and left the price tag on, as if to rub salt in the wound. In contrast, she gifted her assistant an all-expenses-paid trip to Bali that same year. At first, Maya didn't tell me how much it hurt her. She wanted to be accepted, and for a while, she convinced herself that she was imagining things, but I started noticing the way Caroline would speak down to her, the condescending remarks about Maya's clothes or career, and the way she'd isolate Maya during family events. Despite all this, Maya never let it show. She remained composed and kind, but I could tell the constant jabs were wearing on her. After our wedding, Maya finally told me how deeply uncomfortable she felt around my mother. She confided that Caroline's behavior made her feel like an outsider, and that the stark difference in how my mom treated her compared to others couldn't be ignored anymore. I felt terrible. How had I not noticed how much it was affecting her? I assured Maya that I would talk to my mom and set boundaries. When I brought it up to Caroline, she denied everything. She played the victim, accusing me of turning against her and saying that she had always been welcoming to Maya. She even cried, which was rare for her, but I knew it was a performance. Still, I wanted to believe that she'd take what I said to heart and try to improve things. Spoiler alert, she didn't. Maya and I decided it was best for her to limit contact with my mother. I stayed in touch with Caroline but kept my distance, only seeing her for major family events. Maya's absence at these gatherings didn't go unnoticed. Caroline would make snide remarks, blaming Maya for alienating me from her, but I ignored it. My priority was my wife's happiness, not Caroline's image. Things seemed to settle into a tolerable routine for a while. Maya and I focused on our lives, and I thought we had reached a truce of sorts with my mom. But Caroline wasn't one to let things go. When Maya and I least expected it, she pulled a stunt so cruel that it forced us to confront her head-on, threatening to tear apart the fragile peace we had built. When Maya and I got married, I hoped Olivia would soften with time. She had made her feelings clear before our wedding, subtly but unmistakably. She wasn't a fan of Maya, or more accurately, Maya's background. Olivia valued appearances and status above most things, and Maya's modest upbringing didn't fit the image she wanted for her son. I tried to reason with her, to explain how incredible Maya was, but Olivia's stubbornness was unmatched. Still, I thought maybe marriage would shift her perspective. For the first few months, Olivia kept her distance. She didn't outright say or do anything cruel, but there was a constant undercurrent of judgment in the way she interacted with Maya. Invitations to family dinners were few and far between, and when we did visit, Maya always left feeling like an outsider. Olivia's veiled comments about Maya's appearance, her job, or even her choice of gifts would come up in our conversations afterward. At first, I didn't fully grasp how much these small jabs hurt Maya. She wasn't the type to dwell on negativity, so she'd shrug them off and change the subject. But as time went on, I started noticing patterns. How Maya would avoid certain topics around my mom or become unusually quiet during family gatherings. It took me a while to connect the dots, but when I finally did, I felt like an idiot for not seeing it sooner. The tipping point came during Olivia's birthday celebration the year after we got married. Maya and I arrived early, eager to help set up for the party. Olivia was polite enough, but I could sense her coolness toward Maya. She made offhand remarks about the decorations Maya had picked out, suggesting they were too simple for her taste. Maya brushed it off with a laugh, but I saw the flicker of hurt in her eyes. As the evening unfolded, things escalated. Olivia introduced Maya to one of her friends as the girl who married my son instead of using her name. It was subtle, but deliberate, and I could tell Maya felt the sting. Later, Olivia made a comment about how lucky Maya was to marry into our family, implying that Maya had somehow won the lottery by landing me. I felt my blood boil. Maya didn't need anyone to remind her of her worth, least of all my mother. When we got home that night, Maya finally opened up. She told me about all the little things Olivia had done over the past year, the passive-aggressive remarks, the dismissive behavior, and the constant reminders that she wasn't good enough in Olivia's eyes. She even mentioned how Olivia would use different plates and silverware for her during dinners, as if she were a guest rather than family. Hearing Maya recount these experiences broke something in me. I had been blind to just how deeply my mother's actions were affecting her. Maya had always been strong, but even she had limits. I promised her I would talk to Olivia and set things straight. The conversation with Olivia didn't go as planned. When I brought up Maya's concerns, Olivia acted shocked and offended. She claimed she had done nothing but try to make Maya feel welcome and accused me of taking sides against her. She even managed to squeeze out a few tears, saying she didn't understand why I would believe Maya over her. It was frustrating. I knew Maya wasn't lying, and I hated the way Olivia was trying to manipulate the situation. Still, I decided not to escalate things. I told Olivia to be more mindful of her words and actions moving forward and left it at that. I thought that would be enough to resolve the issue. It wasn't. A few months later, Olivia hosted another family gathering. Maya and I attended, but the atmosphere was tense. Olivia barely acknowledged Maya and spent most of the evening lavishing attention on one of her friend's daughters, who she kept referring to as the kind of woman I always thought Ethan would marry. It was cruel and unnecessary, and I could see Maya trying her best to keep her composure. That night, on the drive home, Maya told me she didn't want to attend any more events at Olivia's house. She said it wasn't worth the emotional toll, and I couldn't blame her. I told her I supported her decision and that I'd handle Olivia from now on. The distance between us and Olivia grew after that. I still visited her occasionally, but Maya stayed behind. Olivia wasn't thrilled about it, and she made her displeasure known. She'd drop comments about how marriage changes people and how I was choosing Maya over my family. I didn't let her guilt trips get to me. My priority was Maya, and if that meant stepping back from my relationship with my mother, so be it. For a while, things were relatively quiet. Maya and I focused on our life together, and Olivia seemed content to keep her distance. But then Olivia's 50th birthday came around, and she extended an olive branch, or so it seemed. She invited Maya to the party and asked her to arrive early so they could talk things through. Maya was hesitant but hopeful. She thought maybe Olivia was finally ready to bury the hatchet. It wasn't until later that we realized Olivia had other plans entirely. Olivia's invitation to Maya for her 50th birthday seemed like a turning point. When Maya told me about the message, I was cautiously optimistic. Olivia had apparently admitted to being unkind in the past, and said she wanted to make amends. She specifically asked Maya to arrive early so they could talk in private before the party began. I wasn't entirely convinced of her sincerity, but Maya wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. Against my better judgment, I encouraged her to go. After all, this could be the reconciliation we both hoped for. That morning, I was busy with meetings and unable to join Maya. She texted me before heading over to Olivia's house, saying she was nervous but hopeful. I reassured her that everything would be fine and told her to let me know how it went. I could sense her hesitation through her words, but Maya has always been braver than she gives herself credit for. She wanted to believe in Olivia's goodwill, even if I wasn't so sure. A few hours later, my phone buzzed with a message from Maya. "Heading home. Don't worry about the party. I'll explain later." That was all she said. No details, no elaboration. I tried calling her, but she didn't pick up. My mind raced with possibilities. Had Olivia said something hurtful? Did they argue? I wrapped up my work as quickly as I could and hurried home, anxious to find out what had happened. When I walked through the door, I found Maya curled up on the couch, her eyes red from crying. My heart sank. I sat down beside her and gently asked what was wrong. It took a moment for her to compose herself, but then she told me everything. When Maya arrived at Olivia's house, she was greeted with a cold smile and a curt nod. Olivia led her into the kitchen, where the catering staff was busy preparing for the party. At first, Maya thought Olivia wanted to talk in private, but instead, Olivia introduced her to the staff as the housemaid. She even laughed, saying, "Don't let her fool you. She's just here to help out." Maya was stunned. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Olivia's tone was light, almost playful, as though she were making an innocent joke, but the humiliation was intentional. And to make matters worse, Olivia had her phone out, recording the entire exchange. Maya said she could hear the discomfort and the laughter of the staff, who clearly didn't know how to respond. She felt like the walls were closing in on her. Before she knew it, tears were streaming down her face, and she ran out of the house. Hearing this, I felt a mix of anger and guilt. I had encouraged Maya to go. I had hoped Olivia would change, and instead, she had doubled down on her cruelty. Maya said she hadn't wanted to burden me while I was working, so she came home and cried herself to sleep. My chest ached knowing that she had endured this alone. As she told me her story, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was from Olivia's social media. She had posted the video captioned as a prank gone wrong. Maya hadn't mentioned that Olivia had actually shared it online. My blood boiled. I watched the video in disbelief as Olivia mocked my wife in front of strangers, her laughter ringing in my ears. The video cut off just before Maya started crying, but the damage was done. I turned to Maya and promised her that Olivia would regret this. I grabbed my phone and called Olivia immediately. When she picked up, her tone was cheerful, as though nothing had happened. "Harry, darling, why aren't you at the party yet?" I didn't hold back. I unleashed every ounce of anger I felt, calling her out for her despicable behavior. I told her that what she had done wasn't just cruel, it was unforgivable. Olivia tried to interrupt, but I didn't let her. I told her I wanted nothing to do with her anymore. "You crossed the line this time, Mom. You humiliated Maya, and for what? A few cheap laughs?" Her response was defensive, of course. She claimed it was just a harmless joke, that Maya was overreacting. "She needs to learn how to take a joke," Olivia said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Posting it online wasn't a joke," I shot back. "It was an attack. And trust me, you're going to pay for it." I hung up before she could say another word and turned to Maya. She looked unsure, as though she didn't know whether to feel relieved or worried. I apologized for not stepping in sooner, for not seeing Olivia for who she truly was. Maya tried to reassure me, saying she should have spoken up earlier too, but that didn't make me feel any less responsible. That night, I stayed up researching legal options. I wanted to know if we could file a lawsuit for defamation or emotional distress. When I contacted a lawyer the next day, I was disappointed to learn that we didn't have much of a case. Without tangible damages, pursuing legal action would likely be a waste of time and money. When I told Maya this, she seemed almost relieved. "Harry, I don't need revenge," she said softly. "I just want to move on. Can't we just cut her out of our lives?" Her words made sense, but I wasn't ready to let Olivia off the hook so easily. She needed to understand the consequences of her actions. If legal action wasn't an option, I'd find another way to hold her accountable. I reached out to Olivia again, this time with a threat. I told her she had 3 days to issue a public apology, not just to Maya, but to her family, or I'd share the video with her business associates. I knew Olivia prided herself on her reputation as a successful entrepreneur. The thought of her colleagues seeing her cruelty would be enough to scare her into compliance. When I told Maya about my plan, she wasn't thrilled. She said it felt too close to blackmail, and she didn't want to stoop to Olivia's level. At first, I dismissed her concerns. I was angry, and I wanted justice for what Olivia had done. But deep down, I knew Maya was right. This wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting our peace, and dragging this out would only make things worse. As the deadline approached, I found myself questioning my own judgment. Maybe Maya had the right idea, after all. The silence in the room after Olivia's departure was deafening. Maya and I sat side by side, digesting everything that had just unfolded. My mother's actions had escalated beyond petty grievances. She had crossed a line that was impossible to ignore. I felt an overwhelming mix of anger, guilt, and a need to protect my wife. No inheritance, no familial bond could justify what Olivia had done. Not to Maya, and certainly not to her parents. For the next couple of days, Maya and I discussed what had happened. She was livid about Olivia's visit to her parents' home. The fact that my mother had insulted them, unprovoked and maliciously, struck a deep chord with her. While Maya's parents had never had much in terms of material wealth, they were rich in character, love, and integrity. They had raised 4 children with values and strength, and I could see how deeply Maya admired them. Olivia's disparaging remarks weren't just cruel, they were unforgivable. Maya debated confronting Olivia herself. I could see the fire in her eyes whenever the subject came up, and while I admired her resolve, I worried about the toll it would take on her. Maya had endured enough at Olivia's hands, and I didn't want her to go through more emotional strain just to prove a point. But she insisted she needed to do this, not just for herself, but for her parents. I can't let her think she can treat my family like this and walk away unscathed, Maya told me, her voice steady but filled with determination. I supported her decision. I trusted her judgment. And more than that, I admired her courage. Maya had spent so much time turning the other cheek, hoping Olivia would change, and I knew this confrontation wasn't about vengeance. It was about drawing a line in the sand. The day Maya decided to visit Olivia, I stayed at work, letting her handle it the way she saw fit. She didn't need me hovering, and frankly, I didn't want Olivia to deflect her behavior by dragging me into their argument. I was proud of Maya for standing up for herself and her family, and I trusted her to make her point with the strength and grace I had come to love about her. When I returned home later that evening, Maya was already back. She was sitting on the couch, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea, staring out the window. I could tell the day had taken a toll on her, but there was a calmness about her that hadn't been there in days. "How did it go?" I asked gently, sitting down beside her, her lips curled into a faint, tired smile. "It went exactly how it needed to," she replied, her voice firm but quiet. "She knows now that she can't mess with us anymore. She didn't expect me to stand up to her like that, and I think it threw her off." Maya recounted the visit, and it was both difficult and satisfying to hear. Olivia had tried to dismiss her accusations at first, but Maya didn't let her off the hook. She confronted Olivia about every insult, every act of humiliation, and most importantly, the way she had targeted Maya's parents. For once, my mother had no witty comebacks or veiled insults, just silence and, eventually, tears. Maya told me she didn't feel bad about making Olivia cry. She needed to hear the truth, Maya said, and I needed to say it. I was proud of her for holding her ground, but the story didn't end there. Maya told me that Olivia had hurled one last insult as she left, calling her a gold digger and accusing her of tearing our family apart. It was laughable, really. Maya had never taken a cent from me. She was fiercely independent, and everything she had earned on her own. Still, hearing Olivia resort to such a pathetic accusation infuriated me. "That's the last straw," I told Maya that night. "We're done with her. No more second chances, no more trying to make peace. She's not a part of our lives anymore." Maya hesitated. "Are you sure?" "She's still your mother." I took her hands in mine. "She stopped acting like my mother the moment she decided to sabotage our happiness. I don't need someone in my life who disrespects my wife and my in-laws. Blood doesn't justify abuse. The next morning, I sent Olivia a message. I didn't bother with pleasantries. I simply told her that we were going no contact. I explained that her actions had left us no choice and that any further attempts to interfere in our lives would be met with legal action. It was a hard decision, but it was the right one. Maya and I deserved peace, and if Olivia wasn't willing to respect our boundaries, she had no place in our lives. Cutting ties with Olivia wasn't easy. She had been a constant presence in my life, and despite her flaws, she was still my mother. But I couldn't allow her toxicity to poison my relationship with Maya any longer. My priority was my wife, and I was determined to protect her at all costs. Over the following weeks, I watched Maya regain the confidence and joy Olivia had tried to steal from her. She threw herself into her work, spent time with her family, and embraced the peace we had fought so hard to achieve. Seeing her smile again reminded me why I had made this decision. Olivia's absence was a small price to pay for the happiness and love I shared with my wife. But as it turned out, Olivia wasn't done causing trouble. The fallout from our decision to cut ties with her was far from over, and the next chapter of this saga would test our resolve like never before. The weeks following Olivia's visit were tense, but quiet. For a moment, I thought the storm might have passed. She hadn't reached out since I told her we were cutting her off. I hoped she'd finally realized the damage she had caused and decided to back off. Maya and I started settling into a calmer routine, focusing on rebuilding the peace Olivia had shattered. We even began marriage counseling to strengthen our communication and ensure incidents like this didn't create lasting scars. But of course, peace wasn't Olivia's style. The quiet ended abruptly when Maya's parents called one evening, their voices shaky and upset. Olivia had gone to their house, uninvited, and unleashed a tirade of insults and accusations. Maya's father described how she barged in and started berating them, calling them terrible parents, and claiming Maya was nothing but a gold-digging manipulator. She didn't stop there. Olivia had the audacity to mock Maya's father's profession as a janitor and accused her mother of being a failure as a parent. Hearing this filled me with a kind of rage I'd never felt before. Olivia had already done enough damage to Maya, but going after her parents, people who had nothing to do with any of this, was a new low, even for her. They didn't deserve her cruelty, and the thought of them enduring such humiliation made my blood boil. Maya was visibly shaken. She stayed quiet while I processed what her parents had told me, but I could see the pain in her eyes. She'd always been proud of her family's hardworking roots, and Olivia's attack cut deeply. I knew we couldn't let this go. Something had to be done. I asked Maya what she wanted to do. Her first instinct was to confront Olivia directly, but she wasn't sure if she could keep her emotions in check. She asked if I thought it would be better to let it go. I told her no, that Olivia had crossed too many lines, and we couldn't let her continue hurting people without consequences. "Do what you need to do," she said finally. "But whatever happens, we do it together." That was all I needed to hear. The next morning, Maya and I drove to Olivia's house. We didn't call ahead. I wanted to catch her off guard, and I wasn't about to give her time to prepare some fake apology. When we arrived, Olivia answered the door with her usual air of superiority, smirking like she'd been expecting us. "Well, look who it is," she said, folding her arms. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" I didn't waste time on pleasantries. "What the hell is wrong with you, Mom?" I asked, my voice steady but firm. "You went to Maya's parents' house and insulted them? What kind of person does that?" Her smirk faltered, but only slightly. "I was just being honest," she said, her tone defensive. "Someone had to tell them the truth about their daughter." "The truth?" Maya snapped, stepping forward. "You mean the lies you've been telling yourself to justify your behavior? You're pathetic, Olivia." Olivia's face turned red with anger, but Maya wasn't finished. She told Olivia exactly what she thought of her, how her actions had been cruel, unnecessary, and driven by nothing but jealousy and hatred. It was the most assertive I'd ever seen Maya, and I couldn't have been prouder. She didn't raise her voice, but every word landed like a punch. When Maya finished, Olivia turned to me, her expression one of disbelief. "And you're okay with this?" she asked. "Letting her talk to me like that?" "Absolutely," I said. "You've earned every word." Olivia tried to argue, but Maya cut her off. "You don't get to play the victim, Olivia. You're the one who started this, and now you're reaping what you sowed. The confrontation lasted another 15 minutes, with Olivia alternating between defiance and crocodile tears. She accused Maya of turning me against her, of manipulating me into cutting her out of my life. It was almost laughable how delusional she sounded. She even tried to claim that her actions were out of love, that she was only trying to protect me from a woman she deemed unworthy. I don't need your protection, I told her. What I need is for you to stay out of our lives. That seemed to hit her harder than anything else we said. For the first time, Olivia looked genuinely hurt. But I didn't feel sorry for her. She'd had plenty of chances to make things right, and she'd chosen to burn every bridge instead. Before we left, I made it clear that this was her final warning. If she tried to contact us or Maya's family again, we would take legal action. I didn't know if a restraining order would hold up in court, but I was willing to find out if it meant protecting Maya and her parents from Olivia's toxicity. As we walked back to the car, I felt a strange sense of relief. Confronting Olivia hadn't been easy, but it was necessary. For the first time in years, I felt like we were taking control of the situation instead of letting Olivia dictate the terms of our lives. Maya was quiet on the drive home. When we pulled into the driveway, she turned to me and said, "Thank you for standing up for me." "You shouldn't have to thank me for that," I replied. "You deserve better than what she put you through." "We both do." We went inside and sat down on the couch, exhausted but relieved. It wasn't over. Knowing Olivia, she'd find another way to stir up trouble. But for now, we had some breathing room. And more importantly, we had each other. For a few weeks after our confrontation with Olivia, there was an eerie silence. Neither Maya nor I heard a word from her. No dramatic phone calls, no cryptic messages, and no attempts to weasel her way back into our lives. It felt surreal, as if she'd finally accepted defeat. But knowing Olivia, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the calm before another storm. Maya was wary too. Although we were trying to rebuild our routine and focus on the positive aspects of our life together, there was an underlying tension, a mutual understanding that Olivia wasn't finished. We decided to prioritize ourselves, taking things one day at a time. Our marriage counseling sessions became a source of strength and clarity. They helped us address the communication gaps that had allowed Olivia's toxicity to fester in the first place. One evening, after one such session, Maya brought up an idea that had been brewing in her mind. "I think it's time we make a fresh start," she said, her voice calm but resolute. "Maybe move somewhere new, somewhere we can truly focus on ourselves without her shadow looming over everything." I had been thinking the same thing, but hearing her say it made it real. "Where would you want to go?" I asked. "I don't know yet," she admitted, "but somewhere that feels like it's ours, somewhere she can't reach." The idea of leaving wasn't easy. This was our home, the place where we had built so many memories together. But I knew Maya was right. Olivia had tainted this space, and if we wanted to move forward, we needed a clean slate. A week later, as we began exploring options for relocating, Olivia made her next move. She showed up unannounced at Maya's parents' house again. This time, however, they were ready. They didn't let her in. Maya's father calmly but firmly told her she wasn't welcome and asked her to leave. Olivia, of course, didn't go quietly. She caused a scene on their front lawn, shouting accusations and insults until a neighbor threatened to call the police. When Maya's father called to tell us about the incident, Maya was furious. "She has no shame," she said, pacing the living room. "None at all. We'll take care of it," I assured her, though I wasn't entirely sure what that meant yet. Olivia had clearly crossed another line, and it was time to put an end to this once and for all. The next day, I called our lawyer. I explained everything Olivia had done, from the humiliation at her party to her harassment of Maya's parents, and asked about our options. He recommended filing a restraining order. It wasn't a guaranteed solution, but it would send a clear message that we were serious about cutting ties. The process wasn't as difficult as I'd feared. With the evidence we had and the statements from Maya's parents, our lawyer was confident we had a strong case. Within weeks, we had the order in place, legally barring Olivia from contacting us or coming near our home or Maya's family. The restraining order brought a sense of relief, but it also felt bittersweet. This was my mother, the woman who had raised me, now reduced to a legal adversary. It wasn't what I had ever wanted, but it was what needed to be done. Maya reassured me that this wasn't my fault. And deep down, I knew she was right. Olivia had made her choices, and now she was facing the consequences. In the meantime, Maya and I found a beautiful new home about 2 hours away from where we currently lived. It wasn't far enough to feel isolated, but far enough to make it clear we were starting over. The house wasn't extravagant, but it was perfect for us. A cozy, welcoming space where we could finally focus on building a life free from Olivia's interference. Moving day was both exhausting and exhilarating. As we unpacked boxes and arranged furniture, I couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of hope. This was our space, our sanctuary. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we were in control of our lives again. Life in our new home was peaceful. Maya and I fell into a rhythm, rediscovering the joy in simple things, cooking dinner together, taking walks around our neighborhood, and dreaming about the future. We even started talking about expanding our family someday, a conversation we hadn't dared to have before with all the chaos Olivia had caused. Occasionally, I'd hear updates about Olivia through distant relatives or mutual acquaintances. She hadn't taken the restraining order well and was apparently playing the victim, claiming I had abandoned her for a manipulative wife. It didn't bother me. Her narrative didn't hold weight with anyone who knew the truth. Most people saw her for who she was, a bitter woman unable to let go of control. A year later, Maya and I celebrated our third wedding anniversary. We threw a small party at our new home, inviting close friends and family. Maya's parents were there, beaming with pride, and even some of my relatives who had distanced themselves from Olivia attended. It was a night filled with laughter and love, a reminder of how far we had come. Toward the end of the evening, as we sat together on the porch, Maya took my hand and said, "We made it, Harry. We really made it." I smiled and kissed her hand. Yeah, we did. Our journey hadn't been easy. Olivia's toxicity had tested our patience, our resilience, and even our love for each other. But in the end, we had emerged stronger. Together, we had built a life filled with respect, support, and genuine happiness. And that was worth everything we had endured. As I looked at Maya, surrounded by the warmth of our home and the people who truly cared for us, I knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning of a beautiful future, one that Olivia could never touch.
Story 2. This story is titled, "My Wife Left Me After I Funded Her Business," claiming that I was no longer on her level and leaving with her app. However, now that her business has failed and her AP has done this to her, she is pleading for another opportunity. Hello everyone! Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let us keep this channel growing together. Thank you so much. Now let's begin the video. Alright guys, this will be a long one. This all began approximately 2 years ago. But to truly understand how badly I messed up, you need to know the context. I've been reading this sub for a long time, but I never expected to be posting my own story here. So, Mike, 35, have been married to Anna, 34, for 12 years. We have 2 wonderful children, Zoe, 11, and Maya, 9, both female. We were a typical suburban family living in Virginia. You know the type. Nice house, decent jobs, and kids participating in activities. Nothing crazy. I work in medical device sales. Sounds fancy, but I am just a glorified salesman. And Anna previously worked in marketing before deciding to stay at home with her children. Anna was truly amazing. We met at college. She was a creative, down-to-earth girl who could make you laugh, had a way of turning ordinary situations into adventures. As if she'd pack elaborate picnic surprises for no apparent reason, or start random dance parties in the kitchen, while preparing dinner on every birthday or anniversary. She'd make these incredible scrapbooks full of ticket stubs, photos, and little notes about our time together. That kind of stuff makes you feel like the luckiest man alive. When the kids arrived, she threw herself into motherhood with the same zeal, turning their lunches into mini art projects and bedtime stories, into full-fledged theatrical productions with different voices for every character. We weren't perfect, but we were consistent. We had our date nights and shared inside jokes. We really enjoyed hanging out together. Here is where my sister Jenny comes in. She's 2 years older than me and divorced about 3 years ago. Her ex was a real piece of work. He cheated on her with a 23-year-old from his gym, Jenny has been fully committed to women's empowerment since then. Like, her entire personality changed. She began posting these ridiculously long Instagram captions about discovering her true self and unleashing her feminine power. Or whatever. I didn't think much about it at first. Jenny was in pain, and she wondered if posting quotes from these self-help gurus would help. Who was I to judge? Then she began spending more time with Anna. A lot of time. Anna was getting restless. The kids were both in school full-time, and I could tell she was bored. She'd always been incredibly creative. I used to make amazing scrapbooks and other items for children, but now she spent all day scrolling through her phone and watching mind-numbing reality shows. Jenny began coming over 3 to 4 times per week for these sister sessions. Their words, not mine. They'd sit in our kitchen, drinking coffee and discussing how to realize their full potential. Jenny kept showing Anna Instagram accounts of women who built empires using their smartphones. Most of them were selling crystals, essential oils, or whatever. My parents were also supportive of the whole thing. Mom was all, "It's really nice. The girls are bonding." Dad just nodded, because that's what he does. Even my in-laws thought it was wonderful that Anna was discovering her passion. Nobody foresaw what was coming. Anna started speaking differently. Everything became about the mindset and abundance. She joined numerous Facebook groups about the mompreneur lifestyle and would stay up late watching YouTube videos about scaling your business. One night, she came to me, all excited about this idea for making unique soap, not just ordinary soap. This was going to be a spiritual soap that contained crystals. She had a whole plan to target the wellness community. And you know what? I actually thought it was a great idea. I mean, Anna is creative. She's good at marketing, and people are really into spiritual things right now. Plus, I wanted to be helpful. My father always taught me that a good husband supports his wife's dreams. So I jumped in wholeheartedly. I spent a few weeks assisting her with her initial setup. I used my sales experience to help her set up her website. She received her supplies and hired a technician to set up inventory tracking and payment systems. It cost us about $3,000 to get everything started, but I thought it was worthwhile to see her excited about something. Jenny was over all the time now, assisting Anna with social media. They staged photo shoots with soap, arranging crystals and flowers around it. Using the special lights I purchased, Anna began calling herself a craftpreneur. Typing it made me cringe, but whatever. The first few months were actually pretty good. Anna was happy. She kept the house clean because she wanted good backgrounds for her soap photos, and she remained very involved with the children. She'd even let them help with product development, allowing them to select scents and colors for new soaps. It was cute. Our friends were also supportive. They all purchased soap. Anna would attend local craft fairs and sell quite a bit. She was making these adorable gift boxes with various soaps and crystals, and everyone loved them. The local yoga studio even began carrying her belongings. Actually, I was very proud of her. I kept telling everyone how great she was doing and how she started this business from scratch. Jenny went around informing everyone that she was Anna's business mentor. She was not. She simply showed her how to use Instagram filters. Even my mother bought about 20 soap sets to give to her church friends. But hindsight is 20/20, right? This was simply the calm before the storm. For about 6 months, the business was doing very well. Anna was making between $5,000 and $6,000 per month selling spiritual soap. I'm not going to lie, I was impressed. But that's when things got weird. It started small. Anna was invited to the Women in Business conference in Richmond. A weekend ticket typically costs around $800, but she was excited, and the business could afford it. So why not? Jenny obviously accompanied her, because God forbid Anna did anything without her business mentor. They returned looking different, as if they had joined some strange business cult. Suddenly, everything revolved around scaling and expanding your empire. Anna began purchasing all of these online courses about maximizing feminine business energy, whatever that means. She invited Jenny over more frequently, and they would spend hours plotting her rise to CEO of a soap company that operated out of our garage. Then came the changes to our daily routine. Anna used to cook dinner every night. She was an excellent cook, but she was now too preoccupied with manifesting abundance to complete mundane tasks. Direct quote. I started having to get takeout on my way home from work, because apparently cooking depleted her CEO energy. The kids started noticing as well. Zoe had a big basketball tournament, but Anna missed it because she was doing an online masterclass on Instagram Reels. Maya's teacher called because she wasn't doing her homework. Anna was too preoccupied with her business strategy sessions to check it anymore. Our garage transformed into an insane soap factory. We couldn't even park our cars in there because it was so full of drying racks and supply boxes. The house was always scented with essential oils and sage because, apparently, you have to sage your soap inventory for good business energy or something. I tried talking to her about it, saying, "Hey, maybe we should find a balance here." She looked at me as if I had told her the earth was flat. "Mike, you do not understand. This is not merely a business. It is a movement. We use mindful cleansing to help women realize their spiritual potential." I wish I were making it up. Jenny was not helping at all. She would be there nearly every day, encouraging this nonsense. "Anna, you are such a visionary. You will be the next Gwyneth Paltrow, because that is what the world requires." Another high-priced wellness brand. The spending also increased dramatically. Anna began buying all of this expensive office furniture for her CEO space, also known as the spare room. Like, she spent $1,200 in this fancy chair because wealthy CEOs require ample seating. She hired a business coach to help her claim her power. I started attending all of these networking events and seminars. All of this business activity was draining our joint account. When I brought it up, she became extremely defensive. "I am investing in our future. You should feel grateful. I am bringing in money. Most men would be thrilled to have a wife who is building an empire." What is the worst part? Our friends and family continued to encourage her. My mother kept sharing her business posts on Facebook. "My father told me I should be proud to have such an entrepreneurial wife. Even my friends commented, 'Dude, she's dispatching it. You should be happy.' They didn't notice what was going on at home." The kids ate cereal for dinner because mom was too preoccupied with Instagram lives about mindful soap creation. Unless she was filming content, the house was a mess. She began missing parent-teacher conferences because they conflicted with her mastermind sessions. One night, I discovered Zoe crying in her room. She had received an A on her science project and wanted to show Anna, but Anna was too busy filming soap-making tutorials to look at it. That struck me hard. What the hell happened to my wife, who used to get so excited about everything the kids did? I tried everything to pique her interest in anything else. We're booked for this weekend. Get away to the resort she's always talked about. She canceled last minute due to an emergency business strategy session. I got her into this fancy cooking class she used to enjoy before all of this started. She left halfway through because she needed to refocus her business energy or something. I even tried to get her back into doing things with the kids the way she used to. Remember the wonderful scrapbooks you created for their birthdays? But nope. Apparently, this was limiting her entrepreneurial opportunities. Who even speaks like that? When I mentioned how much the kids missed spending time with her, she gave me a condescending look and said that men frequently try to dim a woman's light when she begins to shine too brightly. Oh yeah, that is it. I'm intimidated by your magical soap business, which is taking over our garage and destroying our family. I'm really starting to dislike all this spiritual business talk. How is that? It focuses on the early warning signs and her changing personality without introducing the coaching element. Do you want me to change anything else? So, at the time, she was making a decent living, but spending it all on weird business courses and mindset coaching. That's when Brad arrived. This dude, man. Where do I even start? She met him at an entrepreneur conference in DC and returned home, talking about this incredible business coach who had revolutionized the spiritual product industry. Or something. According to his Instagram, which I later checked out, he was a business guru who assisted heart-centered entrepreneurs in growing their divine businesses. I am not even joking. That's exactly what his bio stated. Brad resembled every stereotypical business coach you could imagine. He always wore these tight blue suits and had a perfect white smile. He posted constant photos of himself working in exotic locations, complete douche vibes. But Anna, oh, she was completely starstruck. The initial red flag was the cost of his coaching program. He requested $15,000 for 6 months of coaching. It costs $15,000 to teach someone how to sell soap. I almost fell out of my chair when Anna told me. but she had already paid the deposit with business funds before even speaking with me about it. Mike, this is an investment in our future. Brad has helped other spiritual entrepreneurs reach seven-figure incomes. This was her justification. She kept showing me testimonials from his other clients about how he helped them manifest abundance and such. The coaching began with these weekly Zoom calls, which had to be held in the evening because apparently business strategy can only be discussed after 8 p.m. Anna would dress up for these video calls as if she were going to a fancy dinner. Full makeup, nice outfits. This is for a Zoom call about soap. Then came the intensive strategy sessions, which had to be held in person. These meetings were always held in a fancy hotel lobby or upscale coffee shop. It never looks like an office or anything normal, and they always seemed to last late into the evening. Jenny, who was still around all the time, thought Brad was the greatest thing since sliced bread. OMG, Anna. He's a visionary who completely understands your brand's divine feminine energy. She'd help Anna get ready for these coaching sessions, as if she were preparing her for a prom. The kids began asking questions that I couldn't really answer. Why does mom dress up and talk about soap? How come she can attend business meetings but not my dance recital? Maya's teacher emailed me again after Anna missed another parent-teacher conference. She apparently had an emergency strategy session with Brad. The breaking point for me was when Zoe became ill at school. She was feverish and needed to be picked up. I was in the middle of a large project at work and couldn't leave. I called Anna and went straight to voicemail. Texted her but received no response. I finally got hold of Jenny, who informed me that Anna was in a session with Brad and could not be disturbed. I had to make up an excuse at work and go get my child because my wife was too busy manifesting with her business coach to care for our sick daughter. When I finally spoke with Anna that night, she acted as if I was unreasonable for being upset. Mike, Brad believes a true CEO must make difficult decisions. Sometimes you just don't think big enough. Around this time, the company began making less money. Anna was so focused on expanding and building her empire that she neglected soap production. Orders were being sent out late. Customers complained about the quality, but she didn't care because she was too busy planning her rise to seven figures. I began documenting everything: missed school events, late-night coaching sessions, and the money spent on Brad's program. Something felt off about the entire situation. I also began paying closer attention to Anna's schedule. Those coaching sessions became more frequent and always at odd times. She'd arrive home late, smelling like expensive cologne rather than the essential oils she usually smelled of. I'm not proud of this, but I started paying more attention to our credit card statements. Charges were discovered from hotels nearby, where these business meetings were taking place. Not exactly the type of place to discuss soap marketing, if you get what I mean. But I didn't have solid evidence yet. Part of me did not want to believe it. Perhaps there was an explanation that would not destroy our family. Then, on Tuesday afternoon, I received a text from Zoe that changed everything. Dad and Mom are at the mall with that business coach. They are kissing. Maya refuses to stop crying. Please come and get us. That text from Zoe shattered my entire world. My daughter is 11 and 9 years old. They had to watch their mother make out with another man in the middle of a public Starbucks. They were supposed to have a fun day at the mall with their friend's mother. Instead, they witnessed their mother destroy our family in front of them. I rescheduled my afternoon hospital appointments and drove all the way there to pick them up. Maya kept asking, "Why is Mommy kissing that man? How do you even respond to that?" Zoe was simply quiet, which was almost worse. The drive home seemed to last forever. All I could think about was how I had practically gift-wrapped this nightmare. $3,000 to start her business, the elaborate lighting setup for her soap photographs, inventory tracking system. I'd been so proud to help her realize her dream of being that understanding husband who helps his wife discover her passion. What a joke! I basically paid for front row seats to watch my marriage fail. Every encouraging word, each time I told her, "You can do it, honey." Every dollar I had invested. I might as well have been setting the stage for her eventual betrayal. The steering wheel creaked under my grip as I resisted the urge to punch something. As a supportive husband, I was so busy patting myself on the back for assisting her in starting a business that I missed the fact that she was also starting something else. Brad sent the girls to their rooms when we arrived home. They didn't need to see what happened next. They'd had enough of their father's failures for the day. Then I waited. Paced around our kitchen like a caged animal, staring at Zoe's text repeatedly. 11 words that just destroyed our entire family. Anna practically danced through the door around 7, as if she'd just won the lottery. Her cheeks were flushed, and her hair was slightly messy. Now I understood why. Wearing a new outfit that I had never seen before. She's rambling on about her incredible breakthrough day and how Brad helped her reach the next level of abundance. I didn't even notice the kids weren't present. Not a single. Where are the girls? Just kept talking about her fantastic day of business development. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, arms shaking with rage, holding up my phone with Zoe's text. I watched her face throughout the whole performance. First, there's this confused puppy expression, with her head tilted as if she's attempting to decipher hieroglyphics. Then she had a flash of panic as reality hit her. "Oh, Mike," she laughed. Actually laughed. The girls probably misinterpreted what they saw. You know how kids can constantly make up stories? I kept staring. My jaw clenched so tight that I thought my teeth would break. "Honey, you do not understand." She tried again. She switched to her spiritual guru voice. Brad and I had just completed an intensive energy alignment session. Energy alignment. I exploded, my voice echoing off the kitchen walls. "Is that what you mean by making out with your business coach at Starbucks in front of our daughters?" She had the audacity to roll her eyes at me, as if I were a backwards caveman who didn't understand. "God, Mike, you're so traditional. This is a modern business relationship. Brad and I share a deep spiritual connection. I'm actually setting a great example for our girls about female empowerment and living your truth." Something within me snapped. I slammed my hand on the counter so hard that everything rattled. My phone bounced and skidded on the granite. I'm pretty sure I heard something crack. Either the phone screen or my last nerve started fixing her hair while we were talking about the weather. "Mike, you are obviously the problem here. You've always kept me from realizing my full potential. You simply don't grasp the scope of what Brad and I are creating. I have never wanted to flip a table more in my life. 12 years of marriage." And my wife was standing in our kitchen, preening in the microwave reflection and justifying her cheating on me as a feminist business strategy, all while our daughters were upstairs. Their worlds were shattered because Mommy was too focused on manifesting her truth to remember that she had a family. "You're correct," I said with a deadly calm voice. "I do not understand. I can't understand how you could do this to our children. I don't understand how you could abandon our family for a con artist in a blue suit. And I really don't understand how you can stand there fixing your hair while your daughters cry upstairs." She just kept primping, muttering about my negative energy and how I was impeding her prosperity. That's when I realized the woman I married had vanished, replaced by whatever this spiritual soap CEO monster was. I called Jenny immediately afterward. Guess what? She knew I'd known for weeks. My own sister had been covering for Anna, telling me she was attending business development workshops when she was actually meeting Brad at hotels. What was Jenny's response? "Anna is simply living her truth and expanding her feminine energy. What the actual hell?" After my fight with Anna, I drove around for several hours. Couldn't get home, couldn't face the children. I couldn't understand how my entire family was falling apart. When I returned, my parents' car was in the driveway. Great. When I walked in, I saw the typical drama setup. Anna at the kitchen table, crying her fake tears. My mother hugging her as if she were a wounded angel. Dad standing uselessly in the corner, Jenny. Oh, Jenny is pacing around like a cheap lawyer about to make her closing argument. "How dare you?" Jenny charged at me the moment I walked in. She actually pushed both hands into my chest. "You're an egotistical, controlling piece of crap. Anna is building an empire, and you are attempting to bring her down because you cannot handle the strong woman." I grabbed her wrist before she could shove me again. "Jenny, don't touch me. Not after what your friend has done to my children today." "Let go of your sister!" Mom yelled while still hugging Anna. "In front of my daughters, your precious Anna was making out with her business coach at the mall. In front of your nieces? Jenny, do you want to defend that?" Jenny pulled her hands away. "That is a business relationship. You would not understand the deep connections that entrepreneurs form, simply because your marriage is so primitive and traditional." Primitive? I was finished. "So it's done. Do you want to talk primitive? Let's discuss how you've been covering for her. Making excuses when she misses the kids' activities. She is lying about her current location. Tell me, Jenny, how many hotel rooms you've reserved for their business meetings. Anna's head snapped upward. Jenny turned white. Bingo. Yes, I am also aware of this. You think I'm not seeing the receipts, room charges, or business dinners? What kind of aunt would destroy her niece's family? You are twisting everything, Jenny screamed. Now! Just as David did with me! Do not compare me to your ex. David cheated on you. Or did you forget that part? You're now helping Anna do the same thing to me. Jenny, what happened to the cheaters or scum? Or is that only true when it happens to you? Mom jumped in. Don't speak to your sister like that. No, let him speak. Jenny stepped right up to my face. Allow him to explain why Anna needed to seek help elsewhere. You are pathetic. Do you know that? You are afraid of your wife's success, cannot support her dreams, cannot ignore her ruining her business. Coach, I can't pretend it's normal when my children have to see their mother with another man. Jenny, tell me what I should be handling better. That's when we heard crying upstairs. Maya. Jenny attempted to push past me to the stairs, presumably to play the caring aunt. I grabbed her arm. Don't go near my children. You gave up that right when you helped their mother cheat on their father. They need their mother. Jenny pulled away from me. Their mother? Zoe's voice at the top of the stairs ceased. Everyone's cold. Our mother no longer cares about us. She cares about Brad, and Aunt Jenny helps her. We are not stupid. Jenny's face looked like she'd been slapped. Good. I hope it hurts. The rest of the night was a blur of more screams and accusations. Jenny's feminist buzzwords are thrown around like confetti. But at that point, Jenny realized the kids were aware of her involvement in all of this. Almost worth it. A week has passed. Anna was still with my parents, playing the victim. Then she apparently went to Jenny's house, because Jenny was there every day trying to persuade the kids to visit their mother. They refused. That's when things became ugly. Instead of going to a lawyer right away, I took a calculated approach. I transferred money faster than Anna could say. Manifest abundance. She opened a new account and began managing our family finances, as if it were a business she had always wanted to run. It's funny how she wasn't as excited about abundant entrepreneur energy when it came to actually paying for things. The look on my parents' faces when they tried to accuse me of being cruel for cutting off their beloved spiritual entrepreneur. Pure gold. Mom, was all. How could you treat your children's mother like this? Until I dropped all of the evidence folders on their kitchen table, including hotel receipts, coaching session payments, time-stamped photos, and so on. My father, who usually has the emotional range of a garden gnome, muttered damn when he saw the credit card statements. That's basically a 3-hour monologue. Meanwhile, Anna's soap empire was collapsing faster than the crystal-infused bars and hot water. Remember all the manifestation posts about reaching 7 figures? Yeah, it turns out manifesting does not pay the bills. Who knew? Orders were piling up, unfulfilled. Customers demanded refunds, and her spiritual business community began to see through the rose quartz tinted glasses. This is where I became creative. And by creative, I mean completely truthful. She began leaving honest reviews about her products online. No rage or drama, just the facts. Order number 127 never arrived. Multiple emails were ignored. Requested a refund or complained about inconsistent product quality. Crystals fell out of the soap after just one use. Not as advertised. Simple, right? It turns out I wasn't the only one holding back. The moment one person spoke up, the floodgates opened. It was like watching dominoes fall. If dominoes were overpriced, 2 soap bars, those upscale yoga studios that used to carry her products, gone. She paid Instagram influencers to promote her sacred cleansing journey, or whatever. Did you get ghosted faster than a Tinder date? Who finds out you aren't actually a Bitcoin millionaire? Her wholesale accounts dried up as quickly as her soap in a steam room. Then Brad, our favorite tight suit-wearing guru, simply vanished when the coaching fees stopped coming in. Who would have thought that a guy charging $15,000 to teach people how to sell soap was not interested in their spiritual development? The moment Anna was unable to make the payments, he was gone. No more late-night strategy sessions. No more emergency business meetings. No more nothing. The best part of all was that I didn't have to do anything but sit back and watch. No screams or fights. Just the sweet sound of reality catching up to delusion. Jenny attempted to do damage control. Bless her heart. She was posting lengthy Instagram captions about weathering storms and overcoming adversity faster than Anna could burn. Sage. But here's the thing with reality. It does not care about your hashtags. Anna could not even keep her phone turned on anymore. Remember how she was glued to it, constantly connecting with her audience and building her community? She couldn't even afford the bill. Jenny was not doing much better. It turns out that covering for your friend's affair and encouraging her business fantasies does not pay the bills. Who knew? The landlord finally kicked them both out, when the rent checks bounced harder than their abundance mindset did from actual business reality. Want to know what karma is? Watching two boss babes realize that their manifestation journals will not manifest. Rent money with nowhere to go. I heard that Anna, our spiritual soap queen, arrives at her parents' doorstep with all of her CEO energy deflated like a week-old balloon. Her parents, who had been her biggest supporters throughout this ordeal, had finally seen enough receipts and evidence to realize their daughter wasn't exactly living her authentic life. Unless the truth included hotel rooms with Brad, they actually turned her away. And, let me tell you, watching my ex-in-laws choose reality over their daughter's nonsense, it was like watching pigs fly while on unicorns. But here's where things get really good. Jenny, the original feminine power guru who sparked the whole mess. So, she crawled back to her ex. Yes, that ex. The same guy she spent 3 years calling out every name in the book on Instagram. She claimed that he was dimming her light and suppressing her feminine energy. Suddenly, he was her solid foundation and proof that love can conquer all. Jenny's mental gymnastics to justify this move would have earned her an Olympic gold medal. Her Instagram changed from men are trash to sometimes the universe brings people back together for a reason. Quicker than you can say hypocrite. She even had the audacity to post a 12-part series about forgiveness and growth, while conveniently ignoring all of the posts about how her ex was basically Satan in business casual. Meanwhile, Anna ended up in this tiny one-bedroom apartment that resembled a soap warehouse, had a baby with a crystal shop, and was surrounded by boxes of unsold inventory. We are talking floor-to-ceiling stacks of spiritual soap that no one wanted. The same products she promised would make her millions were now essentially very expensive air fresheners. The irony of being surrounded by cleaning products while her life was so disorganized. Chef's kiss. After a month, I discovered that these two brilliant minds had decided that their next step should be to launch a spiritual coaching business because, apparently, the best time to start coaching others is right after you've spectacularly failed at everything else. Surprisingly, no one was buying what they were selling anymore. It turns out that after watching you crash and burn your soap empire, people aren't particularly interested in paying you for life advice. Their social media engagement plummeted faster than their credibility, which was already in the Earth's core at this point. While all of this was going on, I was focused on one thing: getting out of this mess legally and spending time with my children. I got myself the type of lawyer who eats entrepreneur's energy for breakfast. The evidence pile I handed him was larger than Anna's manifestation journal. Every bank statement and delusional business expense is meticulously documented. You should have seen Anna attempt to play the victim in court. She pulled out all the stops, tears on command. Stories about giving up her successful marketing career for our family, conveniently forgetting she quit her job to sell magical soap. Claims that she deserved spousal support because she was discovering herself. My lawyer closed that down faster than Brad. When the money ran out, she had to stop making calls. Then came the custody battle. Or should I say, attempted custody battle. Anna attempted to obtain joint custody, most likely in the hopes of receiving child support to fund her next spiritual venture. But here's the thing with kids. They see right through BS. Zoe and Maya, bless their hearts, stood up in court and essentially said, "Thank you, but no thanks to living with mom full-time." Observing their expressions as they revealed the truth about all the missed events, neglect, and the Brad situation, that was more difficult than watching the soap empire crumble. The judge's decision was sweeter than validation from your Reddit community. I received primary custody and supervised visitation. It turns out that courts are not particularly impressed by parents who prioritize business coaching sessions over sick children and financial settlements. Let's just say Anna's abundance did not translate into actual assets. The moment those papers were signed, I swear I lost 150 pounds of dead weight. It's funny how letting go of a soap entrepreneur can do that to you. The divorce was finalized about a month ago. I'd established a pretty good routine with the kids. Zoe joined the school's basketball team. It turns out that when your mom shows up to games, you want to play even more. Maya's grades improved after someone checked her homework again. The house smelled like normal house stuff, not divine prosperity sage and lavender. Then one random Tuesday night around 9 p.m., there's a knock on my door. Not like a regular knock. More of a sad, pathetic knock that screams, "I've reached rock bottom," and continued digging. I open the door to find Anna, who appears to have just lost a fight with a Sephora store and a self-help bookshelf. Her woman power suit had been replaced by yoga pants that had clearly seen better days, and her abundant entrepreneur makeup looked more like a raccoon after an all-nighter. The transformation from spiritual business goddess to reality was so dramatic that it was almost artistic. "Mike," she sniffled, attempting to make her voice do the trick that used to work on me. "I do not want to be an entrepreneur anymore." I burst out laughing and said, "Congratulations on finally catching up to what literally everyone else knew months ago." But I just stood there, wondering if Mercury was in Gatorade or whatever she used to blame everything on. Oh, I just couldn't resist. "So, running an empire is no longer your life's purpose. What happened to that strong, independent woman vibe?" She attempted to force a sad little smile, as if we were sharing an inside joke about the whole thing. But here's the thing. It's only funny if both people laugh, and I was definitely not laughing. "I messed up," she admitted. Her voice cracked, like her business model. I was caught up in it all. I raised my hand, the same hand that helped her package soap and wiped our children's tears when they couldn't understand why mommy had missed another school event. "Save it. You did not make a simple mistake. You completely destroyed everything, and you did not just hurt me. You hurt our children." Her face did this thing where it crumbled, like one of her homemade soap bars left out in the rain. I don't know what to do anymore. I had flashbacks to all those nights I spent with Maya while she cried because her mother was too busy aligning her business chakras to read her a bedtime story. Zoe's face fell every time Anna's seat was empty at her games because she had another emergency strategy session with Brad. "You figure it out." I said this while taking a step back. "That's what CEOs do, correct?" And I closed the door through the grapevine, aka my mother, who still speaks to everyone. I heard Jenny was still with her ex, probably writing LinkedIn posts about coming full circle and divine timing or something. My parents and I are doing okay now. We have Sunday dinners, but there's an unspoken agreement that we all pretend the last year didn't happen. Some trust just won't grow back. You recognize me. I'm doing pretty well. I started dating a little. Nothing serious. Just coffee. Meets regular women who don't believe crystals can fix everything. Zoe and Maya are thriving. It turns out that kids perform better when their parents actually parent. Who knew? The garage is finally clear of soap inventory, with the majority of it donated to a homeless shelter. But I saved one bar. It sits on my desk at work. This strange purple thing with a crystal stuck inside it. When I have a bad day, I look at it and think, at least I'm not trying to build a spiritual soap empire. Sometimes the best revenge isn't even revenge. It's simply living well and keeping one ridiculous soap bar as a reminder that reality always triumphs in the end, even against the most powerful, abundant CEO energy. And that Reddit is where my marriage fell apart faster than a soap bar in hot water. At the very least, we can say we made a clean break, right? But I was dumped. See? I will see myself out. Story 3. This story is titled, "My Family Insulted Me for Being Broke, so I cut them off financially and stopped paying their expenses. Their world has fallen apart, and they suddenly want me back." Hello, everyone! Before we go into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let us keep this channel growing collectively. Thank you very much. Now let's begin the video. Hello, Reddit. I never expected to be spilling my personal turmoil here, but I really need to get this off my chest. I feel like I'm going to explode if I don't tell someone what has been going on. This might be a lengthy one, so relax in. So I'm Ethan, a 29-year-old male who works at a quick-stop gas station, night shift, basically ringing up gas, selling lottery tickets, and dealing with inebriated individuals at 2 a.m. You're familiar with the drill. Not exactly living the dream, right? At least, that's what my family believes. See, my parents died in a car crash 5 years ago. Completely unexpected. It had a long-term negative impact on me. They left behind their home and some savings, which were put into this trust. Their lawyer set it up. It is my responsibility to manage it. For years, I've used it to aid my extended family. My Aunt Diane, 52, Uncle Greg, 54, and cousins Tyler, 27, and Jason, 25. They believe they are living the good life on their own dime. They are not. Diane and Greg's mortgage, as well as their lavish trips, are paid for primarily by me. They flex their automobiles. Guess where the money comes from? However, they believe it is a government help program for the relatives of accident victims. I never corrected them because I honestly don't care. I drive a beat-up 2009 Honda that rattles at 55 mph. I live in a basic apartment and wear the same 5 t-shirts. I'm not broke, but I don't see the point in spending money on junk. My parents taught me how to manage money, and I truly listened. Anyway, a few weeks ago, we had dinner at their house. Large mansion, opulent kitchen. Basically, my money was well spent. I brought homemade lasagna from my mother's recipe. When I go in, Diane says to Jason, "At least someone in this family knows how to treat themselves," and she gives me a look. Okay, I understand. Dinner begins. Uncle Greg boasts about his golf membership. Mine. Tyler showcases his smartwatch. Mine. Jason is excited about a concert. Yep, mine. Diane then proceeds in her normal, passive-aggressive manner. Ethan, honey, don't you think it's time you got a proper job? Your father always knew how to present himself. I did not even blink. I just took another bite of lasagna. She raved about the same pasta 5 minutes ago, assuming it was bought at a store, because she thought I couldn't afford decent ingredients. Then Jason, ever the golden child, joins in. Mom, not everyone has the potential to achieve success. Ethan is doing his best. Oh, my bad. I must have forgotten that I have funded your entire life, Jason. Then they begin discussing their forthcoming Cancun trip. I booked it on a credit card that I am currently paying off. They didn't even bother inviting me, which is actually a relief. Greg, ever the philosopher, raises a glass. Some of us have worked hard enough to deserve nice things. All okay, brother. Then Diane drops this gem. Ethan, you will always be a nobody. Exactly like your father was before he got lucky. The room becomes quiet. Even my cousins shifted uncomfortably. My father was not fortunate. He was intelligent, built everything from the ground up. And now these jerks are living off his legacy while looking down on me. I quietly completed my plate, stood up, and announced that I had an early shift. I heard Diane laughing as I was walking out. Perhaps we should start a GoFundMe page for poor Ethan, who lit my thoughts on fire. But I did not respond or flinch. They didn't notice me pausing in the corridor, pulling out my phone, opening my banking app, and making calls. But the next morning, I put my plan into action. They have no idea what is coming. I've let them play pretend for 5 years, and I've had enough. But then something unexpected occurred. A few nights later, I was at work, still fueled by that silent wrath, when she pulled into the gas station, 11 p.m. Flat tire. Appearing worried but not helpless. It was the first time I met Jessica. She was beautiful, like gorgeous enough to make you do a double take. However, she was also genuine. No phony attitude, no entitlement. The kindergarten teacher enjoyed her job. While I replaced her tire, she laughed naturally at my idiotic jokes. We talked, and for the first time in a long time, I found myself enjoying a conversation where no one was attempting to impress me. When I finished, she asked for my phone number. I believe she was more interested. We began dating, and those 2 months were the happiest of my life. I forgot about my relatives. Bullshit. Jessica was so unlike anyone I'd ever met. She had no interest in fancy things. She drove an ancient Corolla that made my Honda look luxurious. I lived in this tiny flat with a roommate to save money, and was quite fine with our inexpensive dates. We'd get $5 pizza and watch movies at my house, go hiking, or simply drive around talking for hours for the first time since my parents died. I felt as if someone had seen me. Not only is the gas station attendant despised, then one Sunday, my family sent the normal dinner invitation. Normally, I'd go take my regular punches, then depart. This time, I arrived with Jessica. I warned Jessica that my family may be a little excessive, but nothing could have prepared either of us for what occurred. Aunt Diane was sizing Jessica up from the time we walked in, looking at her plain sundress and non-designer pocketbook. Her face had that tight smile that I knew promised trouble. "Oh, Ethan, you didn't mention you were bringing a friend," Diane said. "Friend," as if she couldn't believe someone would date me. Uncle Greg scarcely glanced up from his phone. "Hello, kid. There are extra chairs in the garage. Really classy. Welcome." I grabbed the chairs while Jessica attempted to strike up a conversation. When I returned from the garage, Tyler had somehow positioned himself next to Jessica, showing her photos from his recent trip to Hawaii on his phone. "I travel there twice a year. He was saying that maybe next time you may come with nicer company." "Of course." He winked at her and gave me a glance. Jessica chuckled awkwardly, scooting closer to me. When I sat down, I squeezed her hand under the table, quietly apologizing for my family's actions. Dinner began, and things just got worse. Every time Jessica referenced our connection, my relatives discovered a technique to make me appear sad. Ethan took me to this adorable, tiny Italian restaurant last weekend. Jessica tried to join the conversation. "Oh, do you mean Salvatore's?" Diane laughed. "That's where we take our children for birthday parties." I'm shocked Ethan could afford even that with his gas station wage. Jessica smiled. I had a minor hiccup that pained my tummy. Jason commented on the job situation. "Did Ethan tell you he's been working at that gas station for almost 4 years? No ambition to advance. I think it is admirable." Jessica protected me. "He's dependable, and his customers like him." Tyler nearly spewed out his drink while laughing. "Customers like him? Do you mean the truck drivers that buy beef jerky at 2 a.m.? Not exactly a professional path." I tried changing the subject, but they wouldn't let up. "So, Jessica," Uncle Greg explained, setting down his fork, "do you teach kindergarten?" "That is nice." Tyler just became a junior partner at his legal firm. To celebrate, he bought himself a new Mercedes. Jessica seemed astonished. "Oh, congratulations. That is impressive. What shall I say?" Tyler grinned. "Some of us have goals." The digs kept coming, one after another. "How?" "My automobile broke down 3 times last year." Not true. "How?" "I still hadn't paid Uncle Greg back for his debt." Also not true. "He owes me money." "How?" "I probably couldn't afford to take Jessica anyplace special for her birthday." Jessica squeezed my hand under the table throughout, but I could see her countenance change as she gazed about my family's house. Their outfits reflect their success. Then they looked at me, the gas station loser. The final blow came from Aunt Diane. "Jessica, you seem like a wonderful girl, honey. Smart, attractive. What do you see in our Ethan? You realize he'll never be able to give you the life you deserve, right?" The table became quiet. Jessica's face turned red. "I believe Ethan has a lot to offer," she replied quietly, but I could see it in her eyes. Doubt. That seed my family had planted was already sprouting. The remainder of the night was a blur. We departed early, and the drive home was mostly silent. Jessica stated that she had a headache and wanted to go straight home. I nodded, but something was already wrong. She wasn't holding my hand, as she always did. Over the next 3 days, I saw that shift text took longer to respond. Calls ended more quickly. The good morning and good night texts ceased. A week later, we had dinner at her apartment. Usually, we'd buy cheap takeout, watch terrible TV, and talk. However, she said very little that night. I noticed her gazing at her phone every 5 minutes. "Is there something wrong?" I asked, attempting to keep my tone light. "Just work stuff," she murmured. She never used to check her phone this much, but I knew it wasn't working. It was something else that I couldn't put my finger on. The following weekend, she canceled our plans. Last-minute gathering with some old friends. She stated no invitation for me. A few days later, she texted me. "I believe we need some space." She said she needed time to think things through and wasn't sure whether we wanted the same future. That meal with my family had opened her eyes. I kept thinking, what could it be exactly? That dinner was a hot disaster. 2 weeks after our break, I realized why she wanted space. I was browsing my Instagram. I wasn't even searching for it, just scrolling. So there it was, Jessica and Tyler. A luxury rooftop restaurant. Expensive cocktails. His caption improved her taste in males. I saw red. I could have flung the phone across the room. I could have driven to their nice meal and flipped the table instead. I became quiet since anger is so loud, but what about revenge? That is silent. Tyler apparently got into her head. He had been texting her. Jason told me later, Ethan is a great guy, but can he truly provide you the life you want? You deserve more than just getting by. It's fine to want steadiness, and Jessica, she purchased it. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the picture for hours. 5 years of assisting these individuals. So this is how they repay me? They didn't simply ridicule me. They wanted to steal all I owned. But Tyler believed he had won. He had no idea what was going to happen. I made my decision then and there. I called my financial advisor. Remember the plan we discussed? It is time. He sounded worried. Are you certain? I am confident once we begin this process, I said. They have taken everything else. They don't get to take my dignity either. This wasn't only about Jessica anymore. This was perhaps 5 years of disrespect as I silently kept them afloat. It was time to pull the plug. Then I sat down and reviewed everything. I knew the figures were bad, but seeing them all together was overwhelming. Holy stuff. Here's what my broke ass has been paying all these years. Their 5-bedroom house in the Pleasant section of town costs $1960 per month, taken directly from the trust I manage. They never questioned where the money actually came from. Who thinks the government just gives out free mortgage money for years? Uncle Greg's prized golf club membership costs $375 each month. He refers to it as networking expenses and acts as if it is a necessary business investment. The guy sells insurance for a living. He only networks about his golf stroke. Then there's my cousin Tyler's 2022 Mercedes with a $785 monthly payment. That's the car he used to pick up Jessica. I am paying for it. And Jason's 2021 Audi costs me $675 a month. He hit a mailbox while texting last year, and I paid the $3,200 repair fee for each of their indulgences. Every vacation, every luxury bag, and every emergency requiring a rapid cash injection had all come from the same source, and they had the nerve to look down on me, ridiculing my job, my car, and my life. They flaunted their triumph, which they had not even earned. That afternoon, I needed to drop off some insurance documents at their house. Nobody was home, but I've got a key. Finally, I am the emergency contact. While I was leaving the papers in Uncle Greg's study, I saw several printed emails on his desk. They were preparing a lavish engagement celebration for Tyler and Jessica. After 2 months of dating, their entire social circle is invited. Except for me, the email chain was something else. Diane wrote that they couldn't have me there because Jessica didn't want me to raise a scene. Greg concurred, stating, they just told me it was a small gathering. Tyler, to his minuscule credit, questioned it, claiming I was still his cousin. Greg turned it off immediately. Life is hard. Furthermore, he would embarrass us in front of Jessica's relatives. I read the line twice. Embarrassed them as if I were a stray dog who would ruin their fine celebration. In addition to these communications, they have received quotations for a $22,000 master bathroom makeover. Guess who? Do they hope to find the funds for that? I sat in my car for a bit after receiving those emails. Not sad, just finished, completely finished. Then, like a final, pitiful joke from the cosmos, I received an SMS from Jessica. Tyler informed me that you've been spreading lies about his family. Please stop. They've been nothing but generous with you. Generous? I looked at the word for a long time. I did not respond. Instead, I made a few calls, set some things into motion. The trust that has been supporting their lifestyle. It is not as simple as chopping them off. However, there are legal and adequately recorded ways. Following a discussion with my financial advisor, I developed a clear departure strategy. I had everything organized, but then Aunt Diane called and insisted I come to supper again. They said they needed to discuss something serious with me. Tyler and Jessica will be there, she said. Like it was supposed to be an incentive. They've got big news. I knew what I was getting into, but I went regardless. It's time to reveal their true colors one last time. I arrived at 6 p.m. sharp. The first thing I saw was workers installing a gorgeous new chandelier in their foyer. Remember the home improvement I mentioned? They apparently opted to start early with my money. Of course. Ethan? Diane smiled as if she were excited. Don't mind the mess. We're merely conducting some upgrades. You understand how it is? She paused. Perhaps you don't. I merely nodded and stepped inside. The whole family was present. Jessica also dressed up as if it were a formal affair. Tyler wrapped his arm around Jessica's waist. She hardly made eye contact with me. Uncle Greg approached me before dinner. Listen, sport, we need to have a serious conversation about your attitude. You've been acting envious, which is making everyone uncomfortable. This dude has the audacity to wear a golf club polo. I paid for it while teaching you about attitude. Dinner began tense. They had purchased pricey caterers using the family credit card. Naturally, Aunt Diane clinked her glass and Tyler stood up. He pulls Jessica up with him. We have an announcement, he remarked, grinning. Jessica and I are engaged. Everyone cheered. Jessica revealed a big diamond ring. My cousin, of all people, managed to get the only girl I'd cared about in years. Tyler continued. After only 2 months of dating her, we're thinking about having a destination wedding. Perhaps Hawaii or the Bahamas. Whatever you want, sweetheart, Diane cooed to Jessica. Jessica beams as she wishes the best for her new daughter-in-law. You've been fantastic to me. Like the family I'd always wanted. I ate another bite of my supper. I waited for the food that I had properly paid for. Diane gave me a false, sympathetic expression. Ethan, honey, I understand this may be tough for you, but we believe it is best if you skip the engagement party and wedding. It would simply be embarrassing for Jessica. Tyler at least had the decency to appear uncomfortable. Jessica only stared at her plate. Uncle Greg announced that the Williamsons will be attending the party, and their daughter had recently been promoted to vice president at her investing firm. We cannot have you showing up and talking about your petrol station. It reflects negatively on us. I took another bite of my meal and smiled. Uncle Greg, which gas station stories would those be? The ones describe how I handle a multi-million-dollar trust, or the ones about how I have been paying your mortgage for the past 5 years. The room went completely silent. What exactly are you talking about? Aunt Diane snapped. I took out my phone and opened the banking app. Let's talk numbers. Do you want to start with the mortgage? What about the cars? Or maybe that gorgeous new chandelier that just came in? Jason laughs nervously. What is he talking about, Mom? He's clearly perplexed, Aunt Diane said swiftly. Following his parents' deaths, the government assistance program pays for his housing. There is no governmental program, I replied calmly. There never was. It's all been me throughout the trust. My parents set up every payment. Uncle Greg stood up, his face red. You may now listen here. I cut him off. You listen. For 5 freaking years, I've paid your mortgage, cars, bills, golf club membership, vacations, and everything else. Tyler dropped his fork. That is not Dad. What is he talking about? Jessica was staring at me, her face turning pale. Aunt Diane's face changed from crimson to white. You are lying. You can hardly afford gas for your junk automobile. I began giving them screenshots, bank statements, transfer details, and everything. Jessica's engagement ring was put on her family's credit card last week. I pay for the Bahamas wedding you're planning. Good luck with it. Bathroom remodeling. I hope you received a nice deposit bargain. They exploded, all of them screaming, denying, and threatening. Aunt Diane tipped over her wine glass, staining her beautiful tablecloth red. Uncle Greg repeatedly yelled about attorneys. Tyler was trying to explain to Jessica, who appeared to be about to vomit. I stayed seated and kept eating. Allow them to tire themselves out. Finally, when they stopped talking, I rose up. Check your emails tomorrow morning, everyone. Everything will be discussed in detail, including the 60-day notice requirement for new payment arrangements. Aunt Diane came forward and grabbed my arm. You cannot do this to us. We are family. Family? I moved my arm away. Family does not label itself useless. Exclude family members from events, or steal women and then humiliate their relationships. I looked at Jessica and you, the little gold digger. Enjoy the life they can't really afford. I hope the ring was worth it. I stepped to the door and turned around one last time. By the way, that junk car of mine is all paid off. Unlike your vehicles, home, or anything else you own. They were all left standing there, shouting and wailing. Got into my car. We drove home. Since then, their phones have repeatedly blown up my phone. Texts, calls, and voicemails ranging from threats to begging to promises of reform. Too late. Everything is prepared. Documents are ready. Lawyers are on standby. The next morning, at 9 a.m. sharp, I sent the emails. Every detail is laid out in black and white. 5 years worth of transactions, receipts, wire transfers, mortgage payments, credit card bills, and auto loans. No filler, no explanations, just numbers. Cold. The statistics at the bottom are undeniable, as is the official announcement. All financial aid expires in 60 days. Then I shut off the phone. I did not hang around waiting for the aftermath. I grabbed my keys and drove across town to a coffee shop I'd never been to before, where I sat for 2 hours drinking the best darn espresso I'd ever had. For the first time in years, I felt liberated. When I turned my phone back on, the screen nearly froze due to the stream of notifications. 63 missed calls, 214 text messages, 43 Facebook messages. They had completely lost their minds. Aunt Diane was the first to show up at my apartment. Didn't even knock. I started knocking on the door at midday. "Ethan, open the door right now. You cannot do this to us." I opened the door. She barged in, mascara running. She was waving her phone, which was displaying an email. "This is a joke, correct?" This must be a joke. Her speech was audible enough to warn my neighbors. I shrugged and barely looked at her. "Diane, mortgages cannot be paid with tears. You should know that by now." She appeared quite perplexed. "You have 60 days to get new funding for everything," I continued. "We will be ruined. The mortgage, the vehicles, everything. How could you do this to your family? Let us chat about family. Let's talk about declaring me unworthy. About excluding me from gatherings. About your son taking the one thing I had going for me." She abruptly reversed tactics, crying and attempting to hug me. "We did not know. We apologize. We can make changes." "No, Aunt Diane, you cannot. The trust expires in 60 days. Everything comes to a stop. The mortgage, the auto payments, the credit cards, all of it." Uncle Greg burst in. Apparently, she texted him my address. He was red-faced. Veins are popping. "You are ungrateful, tiny one." He took an aggressive stride toward me. That was a bad move. One more step. I spoke calmly and called the cops. Then the payment ceased. Today, rather than in 60 days. He froze. He now realized how serious the issue was. Then my cousins arrived. Tyler was horrified, as if his entire world had just fallen in real time. Jason was in a panic. "What about Jess?" Tyler kept speaking. "What should I tell her? The truth could be a good start," I remarked, leaning back with arms folded. "That you are a fraud who cannot finance his own lifestyle, let alone hers. But the interaction, the ring, she is going to leave me." His voice crackled. I smiled. "At least now you understand what it's like to have something stolen from you. It sucks, doesn't it?" Tyler blinked swiftly, swallowed hard, and clenched his fists. He had nothing to say. The next few hours were total mayhem. Aunt Diane cried on my couch. Uncle Greg was pacing and making calls to his golf club. Connections to loans. Tyler appeared to be experiencing a panic attack. Jason is just sitting there, staring at nothing. Then Jessica sent an SMS. "Is it true about the money?" I did not even respond. Simply turned my phone toward Tyler and let him see it. He stared at his phone and then at me, defeated. "What shall I tell her?" "I don't care," I replied. "Not my concern anymore." Aunt Diane then tried one final strategy. "Your parents would be embarrassed of you." The room became silent. I went to my bedroom and returned with a folder inside. Letters from my parents describing how the trust should be used for actual family emergencies, education, and health difficulties, rather than golf clubs and luxury holidays. I let them read silently. Then I spoke. "My parents dedicated their entire life to creating something real. They started this to help families in need, not to finance leeches. You want to discuss shame? They would be embarrassed of you." Diane crumbled. This time, the sobbing was real. She barely made it home from my flat before the effects set in. The chandelier company called to inquire about their late balance. Apparently, that exquisite imported piece of costly glass and metal they really had to have was not fully paid off. The check bounced. The workers arrived the following morning to pull it down. Greg received a call from his favorite golf club, where he pretended to be a wealthy businessman while selling insurance, and they revoked his membership. It turns out that if you don't pay your dues, you don't get to continue playing on their clean, costly grass. But the most significant collapse, Tyler. His relationship with Jessica crumbled when he had to sit her down and admit that his money was nothing more than smoke and mirrors. Jessica, bless her heart, had obviously assumed that his life of first-class holidays and fancy cars stemmed from his achievement, not from a trust fund he had no idea existed until it was depleted. So the engagement party was canceled. The destination wedding never happens. I heard all of this secondhand from Jason, who had the foresight to recognize that I might not be the villain in this scenario. Unlike the rest of them, Jason actually listened when I interrupted them. He did not attempt to fight it, did not beg, shout, or threaten. He simply disappeared for a bit. Meanwhile, Diane and Greg were scrambling to refinance their home, but they were concerned about their credit history. Years of spending like kings, while owing piles of debt. No bank wanted to touch them. 2 weeks later, I drove past their house and my trash automobile. Diane stood outside in a robe, arms crossed, watching as workers dismantled her priceless chandelier. She did not notice me. She was too preoccupied seeing her world fall. I did not feel awful, not even a little, because, while their house was falling apart, I had finally moved into mine. My parents' former house, the one they resided in before purchasing the larger property, the one with true history. That wasn't just a display of phony status. I had paid cash for it, and now it was mine. No mortgage means no debt. There are no parasites leeching off me. It's been 7 months. That is how long it has been since I dropped the hammer and walked away from the disaster that was my so-called family. 7 months ago, I stopped paying for people who treated me like crap, and damn, that feels great. I resigned from my job at the petrol station. No more scanning lottery tickets for desperate gamblers or dealing with inebriated fools. At 2 a.m., the last time I checked out, I did not even look back. That place was never intended to be permanent. It was simply something to do while my money kept the leeches fed. But suddenly, they are shut off. Now that I didn't have to go there, I had options. So I chose one. For years, I'd been good with vehicles. When I was a kid, my dad taught me how to change oil, replace brake pads, and diagnose engine problems. It was never just a hobby, though. I enjoyed working with my hands, solving difficulties, and getting things back up and running. So I stole what remained of the trust money. I saved the money I would have wasted on ungrateful people and invested it in something worthwhile. I opened my own car repair shop. I called it Honest Mechanic because if my family taught me anything, it was how sick people were of being lied to. It turns out that when you don't deceive them, upsell them, or perform bogus repairs, you just do the dang job, right? People appreciate it. Who would have thought? Started with only me. One man, one rented garage, a pair of used elevators, and a sign that barely fit above the entrance. Within 2 months, I was overwhelmed with work. Word spread. People like having a mechanic who was not out to bleed them dry. By month 4, I had 2 more guys working for me, and we were profitable. My financial advisor even informed me that it was unusual for a new firm to earn a profit. That was fast. Then came Vanessa. I wanted someone to manage the front desk, schedule appointments, and make sure I didn't waste time dealing with idiots who didn't realize their car needed an oil change. I hired Vanessa. And let me tell you something. This woman runs the place like a CEO. I was in my mid-20s and as sharp as heck. And yes, I will not lie, drop-dead stunning. But unlike Jessica, she does not require a wealthy man to make her feel important. Customers adore her. My males listen to her, and she doesn't adore me. Alternatively, try to seduce her into an easy ride. She respects me when she speaks to me. It is boss to boss. I'm not saying I'm interested, but if I were, at least this time, it would be with someone who valued me more than money. Now, every morning, I get up, travel to my own shop, and spend the day working on automobiles. Real work. Meanwhile, my family continues to crash. Uncle Greg lost the house first, couldn't refinance or catch up on payments, and the bank was not in the business of giving people a second chance after they had spent all of their money attempting to impress strangers. He was working as a sales associate at a hardware store when I last heard from him. I ran across him once when buying store supplies. He noticed me, froze, and then turned around to walk the opposite way. Diane, her dignity took the greatest hit. She was used to being the queen of her small universe, the well-dressed, well-groomed woman of the home. She now works as a receptionist at a dental practice. No more brunches, no more extravagant shopping trips. She rides a bus to work, I occasionally see her at the stop when I drive by. She keeps her head lowered. And, Jason, I will give him credit. He truly saw this as a wake-up call. He went back to school to pursue an associate's degree in accounting. He even texted me a few months back. You were correct about everything. I apologize for not responding. Not because I dislike him, but because I am not ready for it yet. Then there is Tyler. He took the biggest fall of them all. It turns out that when you spend years lying about your standing, pretending to have significant connections, and flaunting wealth that was never yours, people notice when money runs out. His law firm investigated his customer list and discovered that half of it was made up. They fired him. He now works as a bartender downtown and lives in a small apartment with 2 roommates. The BMW he used to show off was repossessed 3 months after I cut them off. Oh, and Jessica dumped his ass shortly after the engagement party was canceled. Apparently, she was uninterested in wedding vows that included the terms richer or poorer. I heard she had moved back in with her folks. Tyler wasn't quite an upgrade after all. He no longer posts on social media. Diane sent me a Christmas card, and Jason texted me on my birthday. That is it. Some relationships aren't worth saving. But there was one individual who attempted to return Jessica. 2 months after everything went down, she walked into my shop as if nothing had occurred. No warning, no text. She just walked in as if she still had a place in my life. She looked about, soaking everything in. Your house looks fantastic. I did not stop working. Did not even look up. I wanted to talk. Maybe I should tell my side of the story. That made me stare at her. No designer clothes or ostentatious jewelry. Just jeans and a t-shirt with an anxious expression. Your side. I laughed. You dumped me after one supper, dated my cousin, became engaged to him in record time, and then abandoned me. Which part needs explanation? She gulped hard. I made an error. Not kidding. Tyler seemed to be really successful. So confident. Your family made you sound like you had no ambition or future. I was dumb and shallow, I admitted. Yeah, you were. She blinked, perhaps expecting me to soothe her, and said no. It's okay. I understand. I did not. I miss you. She tried things the same way they were before. Simple dates and real chats. It's just us. Do you miss me now that you know I have money? I laughed. That is not fair. I had no idea about any of that. However, you were aware of my identity, and it should have been sufficient. Her eyes moistened, calculated, not real. Can we start over? Her tone was cautious, as if she knew the answer but hoped I'd prove her incorrect before I responded. Vanessa peeked in from the office. Hello, boss. Just a heads up. The client arrived with the Mustang. Do you want me to handle it? Jessica's face shifted. She had never noticed Vanessa before, and now she did. She saw that this was no longer a dirty gas station. This was not broken. Ethan is desperate. I wasn't waiting around for her approval. I wiped my hands with a cloth and stood upright. I don't do charity cases, Jessica. Not even for old time's sake. Her confident little smirk wavered. She looked at Vanessa and then back at me, undoubtedly thinking she had already been replaced by someone smarter, hotter, and more devoted. You don't mean that, she mumbled. I laughed sharply and briefly. Yes, I do. She gulped hard. Jessica became silent for the first time in her life. So that's it, she whispered. Just like that. Just like that. I did not wait for her to say anything else. Simply turned to Vanessa. Take care of Mustang Guy. Let's complete that tune-up by noon. Vanessa nodded and smirked as she looked at Jessica before walking away. Jessica straightened her posture and stepped out the door. I did not watch her leave. I had better things to do. The most important lesson I learned: do not set oneself on fire to keep others warm. Now I get up every day, walk into my own shop, drive home to my place and make my own decisions. And it feels great. Edit. Since so many people have asked, yes, I am actually pleased right now. Not in the phony social media manner, but in the peaceful, contented way that allows you to go to bed feeling good about your decisions. It took a while to get here, but it was worthwhile. Edit 2. To the guy who inquired if I would aid my family, if they were going to become homeless. I don't know, man. If the need arises, I will cross that bridge. This time, however, the borders would be quite clear. Story 4. Husband became angry and left me after I made a funny face with lotion after showering. He was upset because his infatuation turned him down at lunch, and he was cheating on me. Hello, read it. I am an Instagram snooper, so this is my first time here. I honestly never anticipated posting here because my husband, 30M, and I, 27F, enjoy a wonderful relationship. Of course, we've had our ups and downs, but overall, it's been a dream come true. Our wedding occurred in April 2021, and we both cried like kids that day. Since then, the sailing has been as smooth as soap this afternoon. He and I returned home after a quick lunch with our newly engaged friends, Kai and Marie. It went well, but seemed like just another outing. Nothing extraordinary, although we got some delicious pasta back home, which I'm currently shoving into my mouth because it's too cold for ice cream. We live in a very small flat, so he showered first while I put the leftovers in the fridge and such. I stepped in after him, finished my shower, and applied lotion to my palm. I accidentally pressed too much and wiped some of it away. After I smeared it across my face, I still had some of the stuff on my finger, so I did what any totally normal person would do. I made lotion by drawing a smiling face and spiky hair on my thumb. Man, I came out of the restroom giggling and shouted something like, "Hey, look, it's Lotion Man." He didn't really respond. He simply glanced at my hand and blinked at me. I was just having fun, and started making crazy voices and uttering weird things mixed with inside jokes. I was talking for about a minute before he got up and departed. I was entirely unaware as he gathered some of his trash, and all I did was smile and ask where he was going in a joking manner. He has a large vehicle, and we recently returned from a trip, so he has enough supplies to last several weeks. So I didn't realize he was going until he drove away. I honestly think Boo Boo is an idiot for making such a ridiculous joke and then letting him leave like that. I texted him a couple of times, and he just claimed he's thinking about things and is at his brother Tyler's apartment. I've been messaging him incessantly, but he hasn't responded or read any of them. He also sleeps early, so I doubt I'll be able to contact him anytime soon. His sibling is also unresponsive, so I'm just leaving my phone on the nightstand and holding my breath. I don't think it has fully dawned on me yet. I looked blankly at the door for about 10 minutes before getting off my ass and attempting to call him. I've been with this man for years, and I'm constantly cracking cheesy jokes. I feel silly and like garbage for producing lotion and continuing despite no answer, instead of simply shutting up and recognizing that I am unfunny. At the same time, I'm perplexed. He's never been in this position before, even at our toughest times. The worst we've done is take pauses from sex or communicate with one another less. I wasn't planning on talking about my sex life, but I'm simply babbling at this point. I'm fine with giving him space, but I can't pretend I'm not wounded. He's simply going. And the divorce procedure is simply fine. I don't want to think about it anymore. Was making Lotion Man as huge a mistake as I thought? Are there any suggestions on getting him back home? Thank you, Reddit. Also, any cute subreddit suggestions would be greatly welcomed, as this is my first time on Reddit, and I want to divert myself. Hello again, Reddit. I posted earlier about how my hubby departed after I told him a bad joke. I followed the counsel I received and maintained my distance. You all made me wonder how much of my relationship was about butterflies and kittens, as I had assumed. I still believe that everything was perfect before anything happened, but well, I have my own opinions. So you were correct in some cases, but incorrect in others. Those of you who claimed the lotion had nothing to do with it were mistaken, but for those who said anything transpired during the lunch outing, you were spot on. My hubby returned the other day. He apologized and said he was ready to speak with me. I complied. I tried not to be all over him, but I honestly miss this man so much. He is my husband, after all. He told me the following. I previously mentioned that we went out with our two newlywed pals, Chi 30M and Marie 29F. We did spend some great time with all four of us, but one or more folks were frequently absent from the table. Considering it was a fusion buffet, the food was delicious. My spouse and Marie appear to have had a meal at some point, or perhaps before we leave. I remember I was talking to just Chi for a while before they arrived, and we got into the car. Whatever it was, they were alone together. Marie, the fiancée, informed my husband that when Chi proposed, she realized she loved him. My husband, despite accepting Chi's proposal and attempting to soothe her feelings by planning a lunch hour, seemed to have been enchanted or something, because she urged him to run away with her. I'm not sure, but she wanted him to leave me and be with her. Now, Marie is truly stunning, which I hate to admit because I am so upset with her. She's a classic blonde, blue-eyed, slender pageant girl who resembles Emma Watson. I am not. My husband politely declined and wished her the best, but he claims she had been on his mind for a long time. We were all college pals, so we know each other really well, and when I showed him the lotion, it all just burst inside him. I was wearing a hair towel and some terrible old clothing and giggling about something silly, and evidently my immaturity irritated him about who the hell Marie was. He had cold feet about our connection and went to his brother's house. He ultimately returned and said he loved me all over again. I was stuck in amazement and asked a few questions before asking him to sleep on the couch for the night. He did, but it didn't help me sleep. I can't believe he was considering giving up our entire relationship over a crush. The longer I think about it, the less I can look him in the eye. We went to Thanksgiving lunch with some of his family and close friends, and we spent the night together, so I believe he thinks he's safe. I can't pretend I'm not thinking about forgiving and forgetting. He'll be home from work in approximately 6 hours, and I'm not sure what to do after that. I am off today. I'm a teacher, therefore, I'm thinking about calling Kai and telling him what his fiancée is up to. My husband encouraged me not to, since Marie was evidently making an impulsive mistake by phoning her and chastising her for attempting to sabotage my relationship or have a courteous talk. Less appealing, but whatever. C, phoning Tyler, his brother, and inquiring if he left the house at any point. Tyler's house is extremely close to Marie's, and I'm very concerned about it, but I doubt I'll get anything from him. All of the aforementioned. Any advice or good wishes? Because I am not in a good position right now. Would be grateful. If I do refresh, it will most likely be on my profile, as I hear the subreddit has a one update policy. Plus, I don't want to publish without a clear picture of the future. I think I've indicated before that legal issues terrify the crap out of me, so divorce will be difficult, but it appears likely. I wish I could just forget everything. First and foremost, I would want to express my heartfelt gratitude for your tremendous support and kind sentiments. I honestly did not anticipate this. Many of you took the time to message me, and I had some excellent exchanges with other Redditors. I'm so flattered by how sweet so many of you are. I wish I could have responded to each and every one of your comments. However, I upvoted all of them. I think my post was erased. Some of you asked for images of Lotion Man, but I can't seem to find the feature to upload photos on here, but I will as soon as possible. Many of you had extremely fascinating theories, lol. Surprisingly, most of them were relatively correct. The majority ruled that I should complete all three: confront Kai, Murray, husband, and Tyler. Not necessarily in that sequence. So I had to be smart about it, because several of you warned me that any of them may alter the tale. Yes, if they had known there was outside influence before I began, the entire scenario would be weird and, to be honest, make little sense. I'm honestly only piecing things together using context clues, and several questions remain unsolved. Furthermore, no one who is telling this narrative is in a positive headspace, and to you, it may appear to be a jumbled mess. I'm just hoping it gets across, since I know a lot of people want this resolved. When my spouse arrived home, we talked. He basically repeated the same tale to me, and stated he was open to my marital therapy idea. I hugged him and did his washing. Usually, we split the laundry. In addition, I had been giving him the silent treatment, so I indirectly forgave him, in his eyes at least. We haven't really established boundaries with our phones, like knowing each other's passwords and all, but he would be suspicious if I was just scrolling around on it. So I agreed to meet with Kai first. Many of you were concerned that if he told Marie, everything would fall apart. But Kai is a big gym addict, and I've been wanting to go lately, so I made it as casual as possible, using it as an excuse. He agreed. The following morning, I met with Kai. I sat down with him and told him everything I knew. I cried like a baby. Kai was initially rigid and attempted to poke holes in what I was saying with a few gotcha questions before succumbing to his own breakdown. Marie remained silent. That was a huge red flag on its own. I then visited Marie with Kai. A few Redditors advised me to be as inconspicuous as possible, so as suggested, I simply told her that I knew everything. She played foolish at first, but ultimately broke. You were all correct, Marie. Trying to settle her crush was a ridiculous story. My husband was the one to approach her, She informed me that before she sealed it with Kai, he asked her if she wanted to spend the night with him and another woman. Here's the kicker, Marie agreed. But wait, I hate to admit it, but that's not all. Marie appears to have been cheating on Kai with both men and women for quite some time, and my spouse has apparently been straying frequently. They covered for one another, and sometimes met together at the last minute. She declined because she wanted to remain true to Kai, now that they were engaged, as if she hadn't been cheating for the entirety of their relationship, and her husband became enraged for a long time before claiming he was simply stuck in his apartment and she was showing him lotion. Guy. He snaps and runs out of there. Kai and Marie are arguing in tears and right in the face. I apologized for interfering with their relationship and said I would handle my spouse on my own. I discovered Tyler before the sun set. He told me that his brother had been by, but only after 11 p.m. He left at 8 o'clock, so those 3 hours went fuck off. Tyler informed me he was angry but didn't say anything. I then give him some context, merely the lotion dude, and he replies that he was probably driving about for a while. It doesn't sound like my husband would drive for relief, but I'm willing to look into it because the future was already looking pretty fucking gloomy. I went home and instead Googled something on my husband's phone. I was just trying to see if anyone had contacted him. Nothing. Thankfully, I would have gone into greater detail, but it had to wait. Instead, I attempted to keep him active throughout the day. Remember how I said he sleeps quite early? So that worked in my favor. I took his phone that night as he was snoring loudly. I ran into a million dead ends. I knew I was missing something, but I couldn't locate it. Finally, I revealed his hidden photographs. Kaboom! His story shatters into fragments. What did I find? Nudes. Nudes. More nudity. Even more bare. All of one chick. Not me. Shocker. But not Maury either. I do not recognize her. Let us call her Allison. Allison, my second-grade best friend, was actually a snake. They are not the same individual. Because I don't know her name, I'll use something else to refer to her throughout the story. She's extremely stunning. Red hair, hourglass figure, you name it. I am plainly broken. I traced her to a contact. I feel ill. There it is. An affair. He has been contacting her since February. Days prior, I surprised him with a Valentine's gift that I'd been saving my paychecks for. And I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. It sucks. I can't even read anymore, but I'm getting through it. Then I struck it. November 3rd, 2 days after the last naked. She's angry. She discovered he had been married all along. She was in love with him. I'd feel awful for her, but she didn't even try to contact me out of love. As a result, hubby has a brilliant idea. He promised Allison that he'd bring his wife over to a hotel to demonstrate that she doesn't care about the affair. Sounds familiar? So, I guess Murray had no choice but to cancel. He started whining and asked her to come. He informed Allison that there was an inconvenience and that they would meet up another day. The lotion man then got pissed off at me and departed. I'm not sure what he did after that, but he wasn't with any of them. Then he went to Tyler's apartment, slept it off, and returned later. I'll spare you the details, but once I found out, I couldn't pretend to like him anymore. I brought Kai and Marie over the next morning. He promptly began blubbering and attempted to deny everything before confessing he liked redheads. Marie is truly strawberry blonde. Allison is quite ginger, and it was one of his desires that I couldn't satisfy. Even I could see through his lies that he loved just me, and that being with Allison Marie made him love me even more. I just said hell it and packed my belongings. He became more desperate. But even I, the girl who was truly infatuated with him, realized it was over. He technically owned the apartment, so I had to leave. Now I am residing with Kai. He is as hurt as I am. I feel for him too. His wife was his whole universe. We hugged and cried for a while. God knows what I'm ranting about. We're just trying to get ourselves together. He tried to lighten the mood by preparing lunch, which was very excellent. He's an excellent cook. I showed him the other 2 posts, and he enjoyed reading some of your comments. As far as I know, my soon-to-be ex-husband is currently with Marie. I'm not concerned about either of them. And honestly, it's sort of soothing to have some closure and not be walking on eggshells like I've been for the past several days. Kai and I are heading to the gym tomorrow to do some soothing yoga and try to figure out what to do next. We had both taken time off from work. I'm working on my finances and expect to get things moving soon, to finally be officially separated from my husband and be allowed to refer to him as my ex. I'm still so frazzled. I have at least a half dozen images of him and me on my desk, and our wedding photo is the lock screen on almost all of my gadgets. I know my students will notice his sudden absence from my life, and I'll have to tell them that the guy I've been bragging about for years is divorcing me. I will have to inform all of my relatives and friends. Kai is my rock throughout this process, and we will eventually have to split ways, which destroys me because he is my number one support system. Living arrangements, actual divorce costs, law things, yuck, therapy, sigh. I still have a lot to get through. I can't believe I believed our relationship was ideal. It's quite therapeutic to just write this all down and then read it. Thank you very much. I've previously mentioned how much support I received, but some of you guys' honesty and praises have, for lack of a better word, been quite helpful. Really saved my life. I would have been with cheating scum when Kai would have been too. This place is amazing, and there is so much to see here. There have been so many lovely people checking in on me and wanting to follow my tale. I'll be back for more guidance someday. Just know I've seen everything. Yes, I appreciate all of your kind thoughts, and I will continue to lurk around for a long time. However, this should be my final post for the time being. Thank you again, Reddit. From me and Kai. Post 3 January 25th, 2025. It's that time of the year again. If you couldn't tell, check in with your teaching friends if you have any. Lol. Hello, Reddit. It's been a long time, but I finally got back on this account, and wow, I honestly don't know where to begin with so much support. Even today, best wishes for the new year. It's all truly great. I really enjoy using the internet, especially you, Reddit. You guys were there for me during the most difficult times in my life. I received lots of texts asking for news, and if I was doing well. Even people are posting their own accounts of virtually identical events occurring to them. One of their boyfriends blamed the new puppy. Crazy stuff. She even provided me a photo of the little guy, who seemed blameless. I can't believe this heartbreaking experience is so reciprocal. Nonetheless, I refuse to give up hope in humanity, just because of the overwhelming love I'm receiving from you all. Smile. And now it's been almost 2 years. Feels like forever ago. At the same time, everything seems like it occurred yesterday. Okay, now we're getting to it. There's a lot to get through here, lol. Buckle up. I should probably start with the negative news. Ty and I had a fairly ugly disagreement. I do not want to get into the nitty-gritty specifics. This will be about 30 pages long if I do it. But to summarize in a gift trap, we were housemates, quite involved in each other's business. Blah yada. Essentially, every time I went to the store, he knew. And every time he returned home from work, I knew all of our whereabouts were mentally recorded simply because of our proximity. Combined with how we divided up our housework and other responsibilities, Kai tells me that he's going on a date with a girl. Yay! Good on him. In my situation, it was only a few months after D-Day, and I was still in the midst of a nasty divorce process. Plus, I wasn't really in the mood for another relationship, so I wasn't even thinking about dating just yet. Because Kai and Marie did not have a ring on it yet, they were able to break it off more neatly, though not perfectly. Obviously, he went on the date, then went on another, and eventually it ended. After a week of no dates, I asked what happened, and he just said she ghosted him. It wasn't until a week later, on an entirely random evening, that he dropped the glittering rainbow glitter grenade on me. He'd tried to visit Marie again. I know, weird behavior, right? He was telling me about crying and blubbering like a baby on his couch, and I couldn't help but feel sorry for him. Since the road to recovery after a broken relationship is difficult, he informed me that those dates had helped him accept that it was finished. Like, over and over. He described it as, and I am probably mincing words here, he first met Marie. She had this nice girl next door customer service persona. As he got to know her better, he discovered this fun, loving, free-spirited girl beneath the one he claims he fell in love with. But when he saw her again that month, she was straight back to her factory settings, which pained him deeply because it seemed like starting over from scratch. He not only ignored her after 2 dates, but also blocked her everywhere. It was a tough decision for me. It hits quite close to home, you know? Instead of caring deeply, I chose to brush it aside and console him. Things remained apparent for several months after that. During that period, time transformed me into a complete gym girl. Ha! Reading through my most recent entries. It's funny how focused I was on the gym. Anyway, a few months later, Kai informs me that he is going on another date. this time with a mutual buddy. I was thinking, oh, go for it again this time. I was tangled up in divorce processes and still grieving over my broken marriage. Dating was still not an option for me. Now, as I previously stated, we both kept an eye on each other simply because of how our arrangement was constructed. Kai started leaving at 2 p.m. He came home at 8 p.m. And his other dates with this girl were just as lengthy, if not longer. I quickly noticed. Of course, I didn't bring it up because I believed he was just having a good time with her, or something like that. However, his absence on date days was conspicuous. He'd even ask me to run some of his minor errands, which he knew he'd miss because of how long he was gone. Eventually, I met Grace, a 20-something girl who was incredibly lovely and also a teacher. Even though she taught primary school students, it was a terrific way for us to bond. At this moment, things appear to be going well. Kai and Grace were adorable. Everything was fine as summer came to an end. I also almost divorced my ex-husband, but those dates were just too long. Even his brief meetings required at least 3 to 4 hours of his time. Finally, I bring it up in a subtle way. Kai then tells me that Grace mainly plans their date locations, which are normally an hour or two away from here due to traffic. When I asked him where Grace lived, I suspected they were trying to meet in the middle. Kai reacted with an airplane. I'm not sure at that time. Perhaps I had read too many infidelity sites, but bells were going up in my head. Grace presumably didn't live too far away, given that she was friends with one of our friends, and after months of dating, Kai didn't even know where she lived, despite having dined at our place several times and the date spots all being purposely far away. It didn't sound right to me. I probably went too far here. I go to Instagram and search for her name, and voila, I see Kai's girlfriend, Grace, in a wedding dress with this guy Mike in 2019. She is married. Yikes! I instantly wake up Kai. Yes, cringe at my incompetence. I apologize, and splatter it all over receipts. It's 12 a.m. He'll be bleary-eyed with work at 7 o'clock tomorrow. I barged into his room, wide-eyed and gesticulating at the phone screen like a crazy person. It's all a mess. Finally, once I stop speaking, Kai becomes enraged, almost fuming. He interrogates me about why I was getting so involved in Grace's business, and when I tell him about the red flags, he gets angrier. The entire dispute erupted out of control. He informed me I was way overstepping my boundaries, which I certainly was. However, due to our closeness, we were continuously keeping an eye on one another. I asked him why he was upset with me for attempting to look out for him. It escalated into a massive yelling match. He then went on to say that all of this was probably because I was secretly attracted to him, and that he had always feared our connection had gone too close. This is why I was stalking him. That's when I became really angry and shouted some terrible things I wish I could take back. I chastised him for his position with Marie, saying I'd never date him for $1 million. And then he started calling me ugly names, and I had to walk out. It was awful. We were both fatigued and aggravated. It all just blew up in 1,000 pieces in one night. He awoke me early the next morning before leaving. I assumed that after the night he'd come to apologize. Instead, he chose to deliver the news to me directly, which he confessed he had been carrying on his shoulders for quite some time. I know he knew Grace was married almost from the beginning, but he ignored it. Her spouse was a good man, but Grace told Kai she couldn't feel for him anymore, which explained why the gas bill for all those long-distance dates didn't bother him. I'll admit that I wasn't pleased to hear this. I asked him how he would feel if Marie's hookups knew she was married, but still went after her, to which Kai became enraged and begged me not to bring Marie into it. We argued again, not as explosively as the night before, but still very heated, and Kai informed me that he'd avoided telling me all this time because he knew I'd make a huge issue about it. I told him that adultery was plainly personal for me, and I honestly expected it to be for him as well, to which he just replied that it wasn't, and that being housemates with me was as exhausting as a full-time relationship. That I had no control over whom he dated. So I was like, okay, date anybody you want. I simply felt you needed to be aware that you were assisting her in cheating. I did not intend for this to become out of proportion. He stated it was all right with him and left for work. I wasn't Kai's mother, therefore, I didn't need to influence his relationships. I just assumed Kai wanted to know that he was the other man here. If I were in a relationship with a man who was already married, I would want to know. And based on my standards, I'd break up with that man. But if Kai had different ideals, regardless of our shared experiences, that was acceptable as well. I simply did not want to associate with someone who encouraged infidelity. I didn't really need to leave Kai's. He was polite enough not to outright toss me out and leave me homeless. But things were obviously harsh and distant between us for the next while, and I'd honestly lost respect for him because of his continued contact with Grace, as well as his belief that I was interested in him. It was not excellent. Finally, I was able to gather all of my belongings and move out. I moved in with a family friend and was ultimately better off, even though it was rather far from where I worked. I suppose I should provide some info on the man himself, my ex-husband. Soon after we legally divorced, he became engaged to another lady. Around this period, soon after I moved out, I believe I hit rock bottom. My district began to experience the "I panic with student work" phenomenon. I was starting the process of moving out and into my own house. I was in a new community and didn't know anyone. I was lonely and depressed all the time. I went on a few dates, but they were mediocre, and I ended up giving up, which only added to my loneliness. I would never want to go back to those days. My ex-husband contacts me and informs me about his engagement and other pleasant news. He tells me he's on a life improvement journey and wants to clean up his act, beginning with a proper apology. He offers to meet me in person nearby, cursing up and down. This was not a date, and he wasn't expecting me to accept his apology. I should have been much more assertive, but I had been beaten down by life and felt like a completely different person in a bad way. I agreed like an idiot. I believed an apology, rather than a loose end, would make me feel better about things. Everything went exactly as expected. It began out okay, with us exchanging pleasantries and him apologizing for everything. But then he started asking me how my life was going. I tried not to give him too many specifics, telling him that the kids were okay and that I was doing well, whatever else was happening. But I believe I talked too much since he immediately realized how terrible my life was. He then flashed a Cheshire cat grin as he began to brag about his wonderful new life, his lovely fiancée, her shiny engagement ring, and how everything was going so well for him. He casually mentions that his life has never been better, and that our separation was a godsend, dressed as a curse. I can't pretend it didn't hurt to hear about the years I spent with him. They felt like burdens to him. At this point, he's really rubbing it in, and I ultimately get tired of hearing him talk and sneak out of there. In the end, I was never asked to the wedding. So, did we actually make amends? In any case, I completely hated wasting so much of my time, and it simply drew me more into my misery. However, things do finally improve when you least expect it. After a long time of dragging myself through each day by my hair, I finally went on one more date. I had lost a lot of weight and appeared sunken and pallid, so I didn't think I would create a good first impression. But what do you know? Fate can cause things to happen, like magic. That's where I met my current partner, Chase 29M, who is the best thing that has ever happened to me. He's really patient, undeniably lovely, conversational, and vibrant. Seriously, I'm used to being the loud and goofy one in relationships, and I used to fantasize about finding a guy who would balance out my energy, smirk, and roll his eyes at my jokes. Whatever. Many individuals seem to fall into that cliché, so let me give you some sound advice. If you are a ray of light, don't look for the aloof, tall, dark, and attractive Mr. Right. Please look for someone who shares your positive vibe. It's incredibly refreshing. I've been missing this my entire life, thinking I wanted a straight-laced sucker. I have never felt more loved and whole than I do with this huge goof. No longer being up. No more one-sided interactions. No more half-hearted sneer laughs from males just to appear cool. We tell the wildest jokes and create the most epic memories, and it feels unbelievably alive. Our chats are strangely deep on the most unusual of themes, and I've never felt bored around him. If I keep going on about him, I worry my fingers may shatter from typing so much. Geez, Louise. But in any case, I have a few more topics to address. I told you there would be a lot, so I'll just get right to it. It's late 2024. The year restarted again. Chase has really captured my heart. Everything is going nicely. I had moved into my own house a little before that, back on track with my employment and other obligations, but I didn't start returning to my former gym until then. That's when I spotted Kai again. He hadn't noticed me for a few days, but when he did, he instantly approached me. He apologized profusely and explained that he had been worried and ill since I had left. I basically have no interaction with him, he told me. He said several dumb things that he later regretted. And if I ever wanted to be friends again, he was always up for it. And that was all. It's 2025 now. I have no idea if Kai is still with Grace. Kai has no idea that I am with Chase, but I still see him around the gym. So I haven't truly bonded with him after his apology. Maybe I should, but honestly, this is probably not the best way to convey it. But to me, Kai feels like a recurring character from the first film who makes an unexpected cameo in the second or third film. It's a strange feeling I'm probably making up, but I feel like I'm in a completely new chapter of my life right now. With Chase and my life events going so far beyond the events of my ex-husband and Marie, as well as everything else that happened during that time. However, I am not a lotion man. Lotion man is simply timeless. Speaking of the legend himself, I finally got around to showing Chase a version of Lotion Man. I will not lie. I was shaking a little bit, but to cap it all off, a beautiful little cherry for all you happy ending fans. Not only did he laugh so hard at Lotion Man, but it's become a running joke between us now that we have soap. Ketchup with shaving cream guy, the floor dustman, basically whatever we can make. We bring little happy men to life. They all have funny accents too. Use lotion, guy. The world is your oyster, and that's about it. Much more has happened in my life that I have left out of this post because it is unrelated to what I have already said. Seriously? A lot may happen in a few years, but writing all of this down in these long paragraphs has felt like therapy. Even if no one reads this, I'll feel the weight of the past lifted from my shoulders, even if only somewhat. I believe the one thing I've learned from all of this and coming out of my 20s is that being unapologetic always works wonderfully, no matter what. Things change. Life moves. It will always get better. If you shine too brightly in the little box that is your life, then it is not your fault for being overly radiant. You simply need to get out of that darn box. I won't ever apologize for being myself again. So you can enjoy all of my wordy, nerdy, crazy paragraphs in their original, unedited splendor lol.